your socks! Hey!
The Lost Art with Andrew Cox podcast. Marine Corps League and Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. Now streaming on all major podcast platforms. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast as giving a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast, that podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're having a My Veteran Story. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? And make sure you go to the website. That's thelostart.podbean.com. Go check us out, see what we're all about. If there's any way you can help support us in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear, it would be much, much appreciated. A big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project out there doing amazing work. If you don't know anything about them, go to their website. That's tillvalhallaproject.com. And if there's any way you can help them out in their mission, it would be much appreciated. Also, to all the Marines out there, don't forget the Marine Corps League is here for you. Make sure that you go and join, and they're trying to get their numbers up. So let's help them in doing that. But you can go to MC. Are you a Marine veteran? Are you missing that bond you had on active duty? Then I have a place for you. Join the only congressionally chartered Marine Corps Veteran Service Organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member.
All right, Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Andrew?
Oh, I can't complain, man. I'm excited to have you on here to tell your story. I hope you're just as excited as I am.
I am.
Maybe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, well, let's start at the beginning. So go back to where you grew up and then kind of walk us through what drew you eventually to military service, specifically the Marine Corps.
I was born and raised in Northwest Pennsylvania. I was born in Oil City, Pennsylvania, which is south of Erie, about 85 miles roughly north of Pittsburgh. But I grew up in a small town called Franklin, Pennsylvania. And if you were to ask me the population now, I couldn't tell you. But, I mean, it was the biggest businesses and that or companies in that area were, especially Western PA was steel working. And my grandfather worked in a refinery in Franklin. It was called CPT, but it was Chicago Pneumatic Tool Company. And it was in a foundry, and they made tools. You know, it was a foundry for steel and stuff like that. And my mother, the other one was Joy Manufacturing, which was the world's leading and largest coal mining equipment manufacturer in the world.
Wow.
And they sold coal mining, equipment to countries all over the world. These big, they developed these big coal mining trains and, flatbed trains that they built them, and, they would sell them and they would go in and, the tunnels and that.
So the trains that actually went in the tunnels.
Yeah. Well, we think of trains. When I say train, it wasn't necessarily like a train we think of. The train.
It was on tracks.
Like 8 feet tall, and it was, modern day equipment to be able to mine. So in that area, that was really you did. You worked for the CET or you worked for the manufacturer. And I was born in 1973, and with the economy, things went in the 70s, the late 70s, the early 80s. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for what to do. What do you want to be? I've got it older. My sister is 13 years older than me, and her
did it again. We froze up. Is that me or is that you? You're frozen on a very funny picture, though. What in the world? I don't know what's going on.
You're crystal clear now. I'm moving and everything else, so I don't know.
Yeah,
you want
you
to try
kind
it
of
for
went
another
out.
time, or I don't know if it's me or not. I don't know.
I have no idea. I mean, it could be me because I'm in a hotel, so it's different than normal.
Well, that doesn't mean it's you. Like I said, it could be me very well. But
Yeah, I have no idea. I got nothing. So you want to keep going? See what happens?
that's up to you. Whatever.
Are you on your Wi-Fi or are you on your phone?
Well, I switched back to my Wi-Fi thinking it was on here. All right.
So it did it on your phone that last time?
No, I had switched back to the Wi-Fi.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you're coming through now, so I don't know.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Well, I don't know
Let's
where I
give
was at. But
Let's give it a shot. I'll just say, Mike, how you doing again? We'll start there. We'll see if it works.
All right.
All right, here we go. I never stopped recording, so we're still going.
All right.
Okay, Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing fantastic. Maybe this Wi-Fi will work for us here. Maybe we'll figure it out eventually. But hey, I'm excited for you to come on here and tell your veteran story. So let's start at the beginning for you. Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about that, and then what drew you to military service.
I grew up in a small town in Franklin, Pennsylvania. What are you laughing at? I see you laughing at me.
I'm just laughing about our Wi-Fi.
Take six. I know. For those of you who don't know, this is like the fourth time we've done this. So, but anyways, I grew up
well rehearsed.
I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, Franklin, Pennsylvania, Menango County, south of Erie, north of Pittsburgh. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunity in that area. You either went to the local steel refinery, or you went and worked for the coal mining manufacturer. And I had an older sister, who's 13 years older than I, and she went to college. She became a pharmacist. She's still a pharmacist. Wants to retire, but really can't afford to retire. But I remember watching my parents suffer, and not suffer, but struggle. My mother worked, my dad worked. My mother worked for the coal mining manufacturer, Joy Manufacturing, and my dad was a camera film developer for a newspaper plant, the local newspaper. And
Nice.
that was an apprenticeship trade that he had learned as graduating from high school. He was the one that used to develop, reporters went out and took pictures and all that. When they brought it back, he developed the film. And it's not like today where they could just digitally download it. They had to put it, to be able to print it on the paper presses, they had to be superimposed on these big metal steel plates.
Yeah.
And it went into it was almost like pixel mode. It was nothing but dots, but it formed a picture like an old not MS, but dot matrix printer.
Yeah.
And that's how,
really cool.
Yeah, they had to develop it on that. And that's what he did his whole life till he retired. But there really, in that area, there wasn't much. He either went to college, and it seemed like anybody even older than me that went to college came back and did nothing.
Yeah.
The economy was bad, especially me being born in 1973, the 70s and early 80s, and even into the mid 80s. So I, going into high school, I think it was my sixth grade year, started in band. And I was like, told my mother, I was like, she worked days, my dad worked nights. And I was like, oh, by the way, we gotta go to the school tonight. for band, and I didn't bother to say anything, like a typical kid. And I started band at that point as a clarinet player. But the big thing for me was even in that in middle school, and I think it was my 8th grade year, we had, the town park, they had a pavilion, and there was a strictly volunteer band that played during the summer, and they would do parades, 4th of July, stuff like that. It was called the Silver Cornet Band, but they're, as far as I know, still the oldest, they would be still the oldest volunteer band in the country.
Wow. That's really
And
cool.
I remember seeing them. We go down in the park in the summers every other Thursday night and watch them. And all of a sudden, the one week they were supposed to play, they said they weren't going to play. Well, it was Marine Corps band was playing in the park that week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I want to say it was Paris Island. I swear it was Paris Island, but I'm not sure how they could have after the fact, thinking with recruit grads and stuff like that. So it may have been Quantico. It could have been, Cherry Point, Lejeune, one of those. But I remember sitting there watching them all come out and seeing them all in their uniforms. And I was like, it was like, and I had seen, I grew up, was never allowed to watch anything. We had cable, but it was limited cable. Before that, it was, the bunny ears watching stuff, and it was John Wayne, or we finally got cable on a Sunday afternoon. It was, Wild Wild West, or, something like that. But I remember seeing, John Wayne and, Marine movies and, stuff like that. And I was like, oh man, that's cool. And when I finally saw Marines in uniform, I remember sitting there with my mother, and I was like, that's what I want to be.
Were they in their the dress blues?
No, they were in Deltas, but,
Okay.
I just remember thinking, they were in Deltas, or I don't know, what do you guys still call it, Deltas?
Yeah, it's still
Sure,
Deltas.
yeah. And I remember just sitting there, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. And she goes, no, you're not. I was like, okay. So went into high school and still didn't know what I wanted to do. And probably my junior year in high school, I really kept leaning towards it. And then at that point, you're really supposed to start visiting colleges and sending out stuff and seeing things, going here. So we went here, we went there. It was everywhere my parents wanted me to go. A local college called Grove City College in Grove City, Pennsylvania, and Erie and Barron and Pitt, where my sister went, University of Pittsburgh, and Penn State. Everybody knows Penn State. And I was just like, but I had watched my parents just, bust her tails. And my dad, my mother, like I said, my mother worked days. My dad worked the night shift for the newspaper to put out the morning newspaper. And he would go in at 5. He had to be there at 6. And he would get off at, depending on what kind of night it was, between 2 and 3. And he would leave there, and he would work janitorial jobs, cleaning office buildings and stuff.
Wow. So
and yeah. And I remember sitting there watching him with my sister in the 80s. My sister graduated high school in 1979. So she went into, college in the early 80s when the economy was terrible, or layoffs, and especially in that area. But I was like, I don't want to owe my parents anything. I don't want to do this. I don't know what I want to do. And when I finally told my dad, and my dad had this hit or miss relationship when I was a kid. And it wasn't until I was 30 years old, got back from Iraq the first time, all of a sudden he and I could talk about anything. Before that, it was just, no, I'm not saying he was a bad person. It was a terrible father. It was just, he was grew up in that generation. How I was taught to be is kids are meant to be seen, not heard.
Yeah.
So I didn't have I was never allowed to go anywhere, I had friends in school, and all of a sudden you got out of, school ended for the summer, and it's like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got into high school and finally was able to drive and that I had more interaction with people. But I kept saying, I want to be a Marine. And my mother's like, well, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to go to college. I'm like, I don't want to go to college. It wasn't a matter of not wanting to. It was, I did, but I didn't. And I was afraid to fail at college, and I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do.
Right.
I honestly just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, well, I'll be a pharmacist like my sister, which I did not want to be. But, I did okay in school. I wasn't on the lower end of grades, but the older I got, the less I cared, just like a lot of us. But that day I saw those Marines up there, and it was the band. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And it wasn't even necessarily being a band. It was just, I want to be a Marine.
Yeah.
But my senior in high school, it's when I finally said, this is what I want to do. And my mother told me, she said, if you do this, I'll never support you in anything you do.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, this is what I want to do. So, and it was something she said to try to deter me from joining the Marine Corps. She meant it, but she kind of got over it.
It
but I remember talking to my dad about it, being like, he and I just didn't, we hunted and fished, but we didn't have that relationship where I could be like, hey, Dad, can I talk to you about something? If we did, I didn't know how to approach him, and he didn't know how to say, hey, son, come on, let's, talk.
Yeah.
But, I didn't realize I started to realize a little more, I guess, in my junior year, but it was when I finally said, this is what I want to do. And he and I went for a walk in the woods, and I told him that. And I said, but, Mom, and he goes, well, I'll be honest with you, Mike. He said, you need to be true to yourself and do what you want to do. He said, do I want you to do this? No. He said, but my parents didn't want me to be a composing room person for, the newspaper and that. But he said, I did it. My grandfather was a master carpenter. And, that was one thing that he always wanted me. He's like, well, you need to be like your grandfather. But I was like, well, I like doing it, but it's not what I want to do,
Yeah.
So at that point, I graduated high school in 1992. And August of 92, left for the Marine Corps.
Nice. And did you audition for the band?
Well, yeah, I kind of skipped over that. That when I initially enlisted, and I went into radio communications.
Okay.
Which what that means.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to go to the comm school on 29 Palms and learn how to haul a radio around in an infantry unit.
Yep.
Maybe not necessarily like that, but the way it was talked to me is like, oh no, this is communications is an ever developing field, and this is the growth for, the opportunity for growth and potential and promotion is just through the roof. And I'm like, sign me up, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, the recruiter is Corporal Chester. He calls the house one day, and my dad's like, hey, your Chester's on the phone. And I was like, all right. Got on the phone. He goes, hey, I got bad news. I was like, what's that? He goes, that MOS is closed. You got to pick another one.
Wow.
I'm like, well, I don't know what. I don't know. He goes, well, I'm going to tell you what, if it was me and this is what I did, man, this is the greatest job in the Marine Corps. You'd be a mortar man.
Yeah, buddy.
I was like, okay. He goes, man, you get to blow crap up and, this and that. And I was like, hey, great, even better. So I what was a delayed entry program at that point, as a went from radio communications to a mortarman. I'm like, oh, great, here I go. Then all of a sudden one day, Chester got fired because he was messing with pulleys. And all of a sudden I got another one. Sergeant Blanchard calls me. Hey, I'm your new recruiter. I need all the pulleys to be at the office this Saturday. We're going to do a IST and we're going to run and all this and that. It was done. And he goes, hey, I need to talk to you. I went in and he goes, yeah, why didn't you say anything? I said, say what? He said, don't lie to me. Don't play this game with me. And I was like, I don't know why, what? You didn't tell me you were in the band. I'm like, I've never met you. So how would I have told you that I'm in the band? Well, you never told anybody else you were in the band. You played an instrument. I was like, well, yeah. I want you to meet somebody, And he set up a date like 2 weeks from then to go down to Pittsburgh. And he goes, you're going to meet somebody. Bring your instrument. You're go down there. And we talked about it, I think, in the fireside chat. And I can't remember his name now. He was the band officer for Paris Island. But all of a sudden I walk in and he's like, you here for an audition? I'm like, I don't know what I'm here for. I was just told to bring my instrument. He goes, well, put it together and play the damn thing. I'm like, okay. You know your scales? I'm like, well, yeah, I know some. And he had me kind of sight read some stuff. And he goes, well, guess what? You're in. You made it in the band. You're in the band. I was like, okay. What does that mean? He goes, man, the band's the greatest job in the Marine Corps. And I looked at him and I remember plain as day saying, yeah, I was told the last 2 jobs I was supposed to have in the Marine Corps were the best jobs in the Marine Corps. Now, this is the best job. He goes, oh, we got a new program out. It's promotions. And, at the time, I didn't know what it was called, but it was a MEOP program, going in the band field. And he goes, this is what you're going to do. I was like, okay. I walk out of there and Blanchard went in and was talking to him and was a master sergeant and sergeant major there for the recruiting district. And they all come back and they're like, hell yeah, you're in the band now. And I remember hearing them talking, walking down the hallway. They're like, man, we made mission for the next 2 months. Man, we don't have to sign. And I was like, and I didn't realize what enlisting a bandsman what meant, to recruiters.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, well, I'm in the band now. And I remember going back and telling my band director, and he goes, I said, yeah, I made it in the Marine Corps band. And he goes, no, you didn't. I said, yeah, I did. He goes, no, you didn't. I said, yeah, I did. And he goes, there's no damn way you made it into the Marine Corps band. He said, you're good, but you did not make it into the Marine Corps band. I said, okay, we'll just wait and see, and yeah, I didn't know who the president's own was or the commandant's own or none of that at the time. I was like, you just wait and see. Then I found out, but
that's good stuff. Oh man. So you finished the audition, you made it, and now you're going to ship off to boot camp, right?
Yes.
How was boot camp for you?
Well, I went to Paris Island. I was 3rd Battalion, 3104, Paris Island, South Carolina. And boot camp, for me, that it was a physical aspect for me. I mean, I wasn't out of shape by any means, but I had played a little football, not much in high school. I was always out in the woods and that, but I wasn't out running every day. And it was, the physical aspect caught up to me real quick. But, it's just probably like any recruit, even that you dealt with, it's.
I would say the majority struggle with that.
Yeah. but it was more the mental aspect for me of dealing with, I had never experienced anything like that, which is kind of the point.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
And it was funny because I remember, I don't know what was we did our initial PFT in that, and I passed it.
Right.
And I remember, but I passed it, but it wasn't by much. But I passed it, and I remember the senior drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Andershak, calling me in, and he's, all of a sudden I got, Recruit McNany, go see senior drill instructor. Oh, and I go down there banging on the hatch, and he goes, McNany, you failed the PFT. And I was like, I was told, I'm like, sir, this recruit was told he passed. He goes, my eyes, you failed it. Drop your ass. I'm going to drop you, and he was a Desert Storm infantry guy and all that. And, so he was, all through recruit training, he was constantly talking until we got to the end and then showing pictures of, Kuwait, and Desert Storm and stuff like that. But, to all of us, he was a war hero, And he goes, as far as I'm concerned, you don't belong in my Marine Corps. I'm like, sir, this recruit, he's like, I'm going to drop your ass. Give me one reason why I shouldn't drop your ass right now. And I was like, sir, this recruit would rather die in boot camp than go home, sir. He
Very
looked at
nice.
me, he goes, fucking die then. And it was like, sir, yes, sir. Yeah. But you better fucking die.
That's good stuff right there. Oh man, there's nothing like recruit training, I gotta say.
Well, I can only imagine. I know how how it was as a recruit. I know how it was as a recruit. Any Marine that was ever in the Marine Corps knows how it was as a recruit. How exhausting, how tiring, how emotionally tolling and taxing and mentally and physically, and as far as sleep deprivation. But I can only imagine what it was even like for you as a drill instructor, man. And even having heard some of your stories, I'm like, good Lord, man. You guys were above and beyond mortality as far as the recruit sees. How you guys do it? I'm like, holy crapes.
I don't know how I did it. I went from almost 200 pounds. I was 150 pounds by the end of my second cycle.
I can only imagine.
I ate one time a day. I was constantly moving. So yeah, it was bad. I mean, it was good in the long run. It was a good experience.
Yeah, after the fact, it's like anything.
Yeah, while you're living it, not so much.
Yeah,
you look back and you think about it. Oh yeah, that was cool. Yeah. That was cool. But no, anyway.
Yeah, but would you change any of it?
No. That's the reason that I got promoted to staff sergeant, or I'm sorry, promoted to gunny as quickly as I did.
Yeah.
Was because of that. So no, I wouldn't have changed it.
Yeah.
So did your boot camp experience, did anything crazy happen while you were there, or is pretty normal?
I mean, as far as I would say it was normal, but I don't know, talking with other people, their experiences and that. I think in our platoon, we had 4 or 5 people tried to kill themselves.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. We had one kid, I can't even remember his name now, but he, they just kept riding him, and this was not to say that, it was the old Corps, because it wasn't the old Corps, but it, every generation said, well, when I went through, but, it was just never ending. His parents had sent him a whole huge ass box of cookies. And the drill instructor literally got it and opened it up. He goes, "Oh, God, I can't remember his name now to save my life, but got some cookies." And everybody's like, "Oh, we're getting cookies," and they called us up there to school, got up there and we're all sitting on the floor and he just sitting there taking these cookies and he's taking one by one and crinkling them up into the trash can, and he takes a box and throws it in the can. He goes, "There's the cookies." So everybody went to bed. It was after everybody had shit showered, shaved, and all that. And everybody's in the rack. And all of a sudden you hear the fire watch just screaming. And the drill instructor comes out. And everybody's out of the rack. And this kid's laying on the floor, just howling and screaming. And
wow.
He was like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" He goes, "This recruit couldn't have his cookies, so he took all of his ibuprofen, sir."
Oh, God.
Because he'd had his wisdom teeth or whatever pulled out. And so whatever Motrin he had, I don't know. And he just downed it all. So
that's good.
He tried to off himself. So they dragged him out there that night. They came and got him. Everybody's back in the rack. Next thing I know, drill instructor's out just yelling, throwing a trash can, cookies flying everywhere because the trash hadn't gone out yet. Well, another recruit went up there and decided he's going to start digging in a trash can and eat the crumbs out of the trash can. These cookies, And the next day, when I was like 2 days later, he tried to hang himself with his web belt. But, he tied a loose knot, was sitting there like with his feet propped up, holding himself up till somebody saw him and claimed he was trying to kill himself. Because then when they asked him why, he said, "Because I didn't get any of those cookies." It was like, so all of a sudden, the senior drill instructor started yelling, "This is a goddamn cookie platoon, goddamn cookie platoon. I swear to," just going off. So at that point in time, if anything came in, it got opened up. We didn't get to see it. I don't even know if they can do that now. But
I when I was a senior, I told them that, hey, don't let your parents send anything.
Yeah.
Of course, it always happens. Somebody sent something.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I'd have them, whoever recruit got it, I'd be like, "All right, stay on the quarterdeck. It's yours. Go ahead and eat it." "Well, we got it for the whole platoon." "No, that's not how it works. It's yours. You eat it, or either you throw it in the trash. It's yours. Either one of those options." So I had some sit there and try to eat it, and of course, it didn't go well for them. The majority just threw it in the trash, though.
Yeah.
So, and I never let them have anything. Like when I was a senior, how some seniors let them, they'll have snacks and they'll have movie time and all kinds. I didn't do anything.
No, we never had any of that. We never had any of that till the week before we graduated.
Wow.
And it was finally, the senior drill instructor came in. He goes, "Everybody up here, just sit down." And he was having at that point, talks like, "Okay, you guys are going to be Marines soon," talking about the fleet and this and that. And, he wheeled, it was like you're back in school. He wheeled in the cart with a TV and a VCR. And we're like, "Oh my God, we're going to see. What are we going to watch? What is it?" And he goes, "Right now, we're going to watch the best movie that has ever been made. And I'm going to let you watch it." Sticks it in. It was Full Metal Jacket, and the whole time, he's sitting there and we're all like, we got our canteens, we're like, we're drinking and, having a heck of a day. But, as far as boot camp experience, I mean, I think back at it now and I was like, I wouldn't give it up, but could I go back and do it? I don't know. If I knew what I knew now, but it's,
I'd never go back and do it again.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it, but I wouldn't go back and do it again.
Yeah. But it's funny, even then, your drill instructors, you remember them forever, who they were. And when I got to my first duty station, I actually ran in to one of the drill instructors. He was the heavy. Well, he was more of the training. I had senior drill instructor, and we only had three. It was senior drill instructor. He was staff sergeant Anishak. The next one, he was kind of like the lunatic. I don't know what you would call him, the heavy, but he was just, he was unhinged on a daily damn basis. But, Staff Sergeant Rutan and then Sergeant Taylor is the one that taught us drill, taught us, basically everything. And all Rutan did was run around going like this all the time, But I ran into Sergeant Taylor. We're in Barstow.
Okay.
And he was a staff sergeant. And I remember hearing his voice, and I'm like, that's freaking Sergeant Taylor. And it was after the fact, and the ceremony was done, and we were standing there, and he comes walking over, and he goes, McNany. And I stopped. I was like, holy crap. And he looked at me and goes, Jesus, Marine. He goes, freaking Lance Corporal, what the hell are you acting like that for? And I was like, oh, yes, sir. And he goes, I ain't no damn sir. I was still traumatized, But the impact they make on you is unbelievable. And I mean, that's probably something you've heard back from even recruits you've had.
Yeah,
but
that's true. I still remember my drill instructors, senior drill instructor Staff Ross, drill instructor Staff Sergeant Rudisell, drill instructor Staff Sergeant McWilliams, and then I also had drill instructor Staff Sergeant Lopez, but he was kind of in and out. But he was the one. He was the one that when I was I was doing mountain climbers in the sand, and he was up front conducting like it was an orchestra, and I looked up. And I just started laughing, and he, oh, you think that's funny, Cox? Yes, sir. And he's like, this is music to my ears. So he was a goofy dude.
Yeah. Yeah, Rutan would he was a Desert Storm vet too, but he, on Paris Island there's sand fleas.
Yeah.
San Diego has the mountains and hills, and we had the swamp and the sand fleas, but you'd be standing there, they'd be on you, just chomping on you in your arms, and that was the one thing they told us is like, you got anybody back home wants to send you something, make sure it's it's Avon Skin So Soft,
Oh, okay.
and they'd open that up and like, we got Skin So Soft, and they'd put it in spray bottles, and they'd walk around and give you like a squirt, and just like it was like you were putting cologne on, shoot in the air and run through it real quick. It wasn't enough to do anything. But, if you saw the drill instructors, you're like, doing this, back of their necks and all that crap, But, the sand fleas would kind of land in it, and it would make them a little bit immobile if you had enough on you, so they couldn't chomp down on you. But it's like, a mosquito on steroids just chomping on you. And I remember us doing drill, and Taylor's out there. We're doing drill, and we'd stop, and Rutan would be running through and correcting rifles. And I wore glasses. I wear contacts now, but I had the old BCGs on, and I'm standing there. And my rifle wasn't quite where it was supposed to be. And that was rifles with a front side post and all that for when we had iron sights. And he comes walking up and jabs that rifle into me and cracked me right here in my glasses, the front sight post did, and tore up my nose, and I got blood running down my face, and all that stuff. But he'd be out there in the sand fleas. He goes, let them eat. My sand flies got to eat. My sand flies got to eat. They got to eat. You let them eat, damn it. And he'd be standing there, and he'd pick his arm up. He would just go like that. And he'd lick sand fleas off his arm and just stand there. They got to eat, so I got to eat too, and stuff like that. And we're like, sir, yes, sir.
That's a pretty good one. I never heard that.
Yeah. He's like, let them eat. They got to eat. They got to eat because I got to eat. I was like, yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir. He's hard.
What a psycho.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh man. So you did your time at boot camp, then off to MCT. And when you were at MCT, now did you get to shoot the heavy guns and then throw grenades and stuff?
We did at MCT. Yeah, we shot 50 cals, Mark 19s. That was it. Was because my understanding has changed. I don't know if it's still the same way, but we had it was 2 months. It was 10 weeks at MCT.
It was 10
I don't know
weeks.
what it. Yeah,
I think it's
it was weird because we graduated
three.
in time for Thanksgiving. When I graduated boot camp, we got to go home, and it was only a week, and we had to be back.
Wow.
And then to go to MCT, and I don't know why because they kept saying ours was different than everybody else's, but I made I don't know.
That's interesting.
So
I have to look that up somehow.
But we did the heavy guns, Mark 19, 50 cal. At the time not the 240, but the 60, and all that grenade range. Hell, we were in the field, I think, for 2 weeks at that point.
Wow. Yeah, we I don't think it's that long now. I think it's maybe 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. I don't even know. I haven't even paid attention. I'm sure somebody out there knows.
Yeah. But yeah, from MCT, of course, they were, calling everything out to everybody. And that was the same way in boot camp. You start getting fitted for uniforms, and all of a sudden, there was a handful, the band as a guaranteed PFC was blues. I don't know, does everybody graduate with blues now, or?
I believe everybody it's a issue item, if I'm not mistaken. Now.
Yeah. But they, of course, they made an issue out of that. Oh, my band guy here, my band guy, Then MCT was the same way, but from MCT went to the good old School of Music in Norfolk or Little Creek, Virginia.
Yeah. So that was a good time. So how was your experience there?
Not good at all. I did not have a good time at the School of Music.
So
I say that in the sense that I could play my instrument, and if you put something down, I could play it. But I had no background in theory. I had no background in ear training. And it wasn't a matter of my high school band director not knowing that, because he knew it greatly. He attempted to teach me, but I attempted to not want to learn it. And then learn extremely the hard way what he had tried to teach me. And the School of Music, depending on when you get there, you class up and all that, at least when I was there, was minimum of 6 months unless you excelled out or you were extremely proficient. I don't know what it is now, but
it's about the same. I think total with like pickup week and all that stuff, it's close to 7 months total.
Yeah. Well, see, that was the thing with us, is that my group got there in January, and then we didn't class up for like 2.5 months.
Wow.
We literally sat there weed whacking and, painting parking lot lines and whatever working party the base needed, where they sent us out on. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we got a class, let's go. So we got there, and it was January, I think it was January 1st of 93.
Okay.
And we didn't start class until March.
Wow.
Which meant, our class would have graduated in August, September timeframe.
Mm-hmm. And
we had a handful of my class that excelled out and left. And but I was just lost, you know, and I didn't know, I don't claim to be the smartest human being on the face of the planet, but I can learn if you can teach me. And I can comprehend things, and I did understand music, but there was a lot of, well, you were supposed to come here already knowing this stuff. And I'm like, I don't. And I would go ask for help, and they're like, so sad.
Oh, wow.
And I got through ear training and theory. I was able to get through it, but even my biggest problem outside of that was, you had weekly lessons, and I would go play and do this and do my practice or IPs or whatever the heck we called them, and sit there and went for my F1, just barely passed it. And then my F2 took me 3 times to finally pass it.
Yeah.
And after the second one, they're like, yeah, you're, huh?
Sorry, did that hold you back, or were you able to do it before the grad date?
No, I wasn't able to graduate with everybody else. Yeah, I was 3 classes later.
Yeah.
I had passed everything else. And that was actually the one thing is they're like, well, you got to take your F2 again. You're not going to graduate with this class. But there was another class that was going to graduate in like a month or 2 to 3 weeks, roughly, that time frame to a month. And they're like, well, you can take it then. So I sat in those damn practice rooms just running scales and prepared piece. And then all of a sudden my instructor was an Army instructor, Staff Sergeant Ross, clarinet player, great clarinet player. He's like, I got an idea, McNany. We're going to change your solo. I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, I don't want you to play that solo. You're going to play another solo. And I'm like, I've got a week and a half. He goes, oh, you got this. You got time. So I start practicing it, go in a second F2, and they're like, no. And literally it was chief. I can't remember. He was a chief. He goes, this isn't the solo that was on the record for you to play. I'm like, well, Staff Sergeant Ross, chief, wanted me. He goes, why the hell did you change? I was like, because he wanted me to change. He goes, well, you failed.
Oh, man.
So then they made me go through theory and ear training again. My 3rd time.
Wow.
And, I didn't have to go through the whole course, but they wanted me to go through like an abbreviated course of it again. Because they said they couldn't justify me still being at the School of Music and just practicing.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I get, but, I did all that. And this was going into December of 93 at that point. And it was Master Chief Sherini. He was the Master Chief, and there was Senior Chief Chief LeQuay, and Senior Chief Lakita was like the head of rehearsal division, and Master Chief Sherini was, I believe, was the head of curriculum. Maybe, I don't know what you would call it. Yeah. I don't remember now.
Something like that,
yeah, but I sat in the rehearsal that my F2 for the 3rd time, and I walked out, and Master Chief Sherini came out, and he goes, how do you think you did? I said, I think I did okay, Master Chief, but I don't really feel that I did all that great. I'm just at this point where he goes, well, what do you want to do? Is a band what you want to do? Is this what you want? And I was like, well, yes, Master Chief. He goes, what's the passing score out of the school? Is it a 2.9, 2.8. Well, I mean, I'm asking you, AJ.
Oh,
Andrew.
I'm sorry. I thought he was asking you that. No.
No.
Well, the equivalent, they've changed the scoring, but it was a 2.7 if I'm not mistaken. For the basic
What
course.
did you? Yeah, 2.7. And he said, "Well, I graded you at, yeah, that's right, a 2.7. I was thinking 2.8, but a 2.7." He said, "I graded you at a 2.7 too." He said, "But everybody else," he said, "but the other two graded you at a 2.68 and a 2.69." I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" Did I pass? And he was like, "Yes and no." I was like, so, I mean, literally, this is going into the week of Christmas that year. And I'm like, what does this mean? And he's like, "Come up to my office." So we go upstairs, across from the Marine Element office over there. And I'm sitting in a chair out there in the hallway. And he goes in and he comes walking out with, all the sheets, everybody's sheets. And he goes to Chief LeQuay, and I can hear them talking. And she goes, "As far as I'm concerned, he passed. If you put something in front of him, he'll play it. He just has, I remember her saying this, he has audition anxiety. Just when he goes in, it's like, she goes, I can't take tests. That's why I'm only a damn chief. Because they have to, in the Navy, you have to test."
That's right.
And she goes, he just has audition anxiety. She said, "I know he can play. I've heard him play. And I don't, even to this day, even when I was even in the band field in the Marine Corps, I don't claim to be a virtuoso. I wasn't a first, principal first chair player or anything like that. But if you put it in front of me, give me a day or so and I'll play it. I mean, I'll play it. I'll memorize this. I'll do that." So he went from there to senior chief, the other senior chief. I just said his name and now my mind went blank. Was Chief Lakita, Senior Chief Lakita.
Yeah.
And he went to him, and they're literally down the hall and around the turn. And, by the rehearsal halls on the far end. And I hear Master Chief Serini goes, "What the hell do you mean you don't know who the hell McNany is?" And he comes walking back out, and Lakita's falling behind him. He goes, "Who the hell is McNany? I don't know who the hell McNany is." And Master Chief Serena looks at me, points right, "That would be McNany right there," like that. He goes, "Oh, him. Yeah, he passed." Master Chief Serena looks at me. He's got all my paperwork. He's just sitting there doing this, balls it all up, and he goes, "Pack your shit up and get the hell out of here. You pass. Go the hell home. Merry Christmas." And I was like, and Master Chief Serini is probably one of the nicest, calmest talking human beings you would ever meet. And he lives out in Bakersfield, California. And I haven't talked to him in several years, and I owe him a lot. But he is probably one of the calmest talking people, just nicest people. He was a oboe or bassoon player, but, unbelievable human being. Master Chief, how he handled people, never yelled, nothing. And I will never forget that day. He was just, "Who the hell do you mean?" Just, "That would be him right there," just screaming. He's got it all balled up, like he was supposed to hand it all to me. And, "Hey, here's your stuff, so you have it." And I got it in this ball. It looked like, somebody got mad and rolled up a ball of aluminum foil. And, "Here, go pack your shit up." And I was like, "Yes, Master Chief." Of course, I'm running down the hall. I've grabbed all my crap, and I'm like, "What do I need to do next?" And Master Gunny Eccles walks out of Marine Element, and he goes, "Where the hell do you think you're going?" I'm like, and Turn
I'm
around.
packing my
That's
shit
Gun.
going home.
He was Gunny Eccles at the time, and I was like, Gunny. He goes, PFC. Yeah, I was a Lance Corporal at the time. He goes, Lance Corporal. I'm like, Gunny. He goes, Lance Corporal. I'm like, oh, again, I don't know what the hell's going on here. And I go running back to his Gunny Eccles. Master Gunnery Sergeant Covington was a senior enlisted, and Captain Trone.
Yeah.
And I go running back there, and he goes, "Are you done?" And I was like, Gunnery Sergeant. And he goes, "Are you done?" I was like, "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant. I passed. I get to leave." He goes, "No." He looked at me. He goes, "No. Are you done being stupid? Where the hell do you think you going?" He said, "You walk from there. You come over to here." And I'm like, "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant."
You're just a little on the excited side. Didn't know what to do.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta get my stuff packed up. I gotta get all my stuff in my sea bag.
You took it literal.
Yeah.
Well, after you packed all your shit, where did you go next? From where?
Well, from there, went from the good old 29 Palms, California. Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center.
That's right. Yeah. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your experience in the Big 29.
Well, I got there and it was January 1st of 94. Of course, the band was gone on leave. Well, they had just done the Rose Parade. And of course, then they got back and were on leave. So I sat in some random barracks room for like 2 weeks. And I was like, well, I'm with the band. Yeah. And nobody knew what to do with me. Even they knew I was in the band, but they had no clue.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I was like, 2 weeks went by and I'm going to company and I'm again polishing stones and emptying trash cans and sweeping the hallway, barracks and, all kinds of crap. And I walked out of the barracks room one morning and it was one of the guys I was at the School of Music with.
Oh, nice. Okay.
A lot of those guys, and that was the one thing with that band, the group that they had sent out there was the group to replace the Marines that had replaced the Drum and Bugle Corps at 29 Palms.
Yeah.
And even when they sent that group of Marines out there as a band, they were still contemplating every year. It was like, yeah, we're getting rid of 29 Palms, getting rid of 29 Palms. And that was a disgruntled bunch of human beings right there. I mean, I loved every one of them to death, but man, they hated everything about them. They hated that life. They hated everything there was. And
wow.
The group that I was with at the School of Music, I ran into Jimmy Pearson, and I was like, Jimmy, and he turned around and looked at me and goes, "Hey, man, what the hell are you doing here? Where the hell have you been? Everybody's been asking where the hell you been." I was like, "Well, I've been here." And I was like, "Well, where do I go?" And he goes, "I don't know." And he just took off, And like 2 hours later, all of a sudden I hear, I'm in the barracks room, nobody in the barracks. I'm just sitting there like nobody knows who the hell I am. Nobody knows what to do with me. And I go open the door and it was Sergeant Carroll from the band. He goes, "Are you Lance Corporal McNany?" And I was like, "Yes, Sergeant." "Why the hell are you in here?" "Because this is where I was told to go." "Get all your crap. Let's, he threw all my stuff in his truck, go to the band hall, and then they're like, "Well, where are you staying?" I'm like, "Well, I don't have a room now, apparently." I don't know where I'm staying. And here the band was in the next barracks over, and I didn't know that. Hell, I hadn't even, other than the only place, I didn't even know where, at that time, I didn't even know where the hell a chow hall was because nobody would tell me. All I knew was the top of the hill up there over in the corner was the bowling alley. which had a restaurant in it. And you get burgers and fries, and so
Yeah.
I would walk up there every day and eat.
Wow.
But
They
I
really took
started.
care of
Oh yeah, it was headquarters battalion at its best at 29 Palms at that point.
it.
But yeah,
That sounds about right. Yeah. So now 29 Palms, because I got to venture out there as well, but you were there a little before my time. We traveled all over the place. I mean, that was one traveling band. I don't know if I've ever been in a band that traveled that much.
yeah.
Was it the same when you were there?
We did a lot. We did everything. Base ceremonies. We covered a lot for San Diego. We covered for even Pendleton, Miramar. We did Mardi Gras. We did. We even went up to Washington State. Did change of commands up there, and I want to say it's Bangor, but I don't. I keep thinking Bangor, Maine, but I think it's Bangor, Washington. It's like a sub base. We did change of commands up there. We did the Oregon State Fair.
So yeah, you've definitely traveled.
We did a lot of we did.
Nice. Now, who?
A lot of those jobs. A lot of those guys met their wives and stuff like that.
On the trips?
Not necessarily married still, but they met their wives. And,
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's still the same way. I'm sure there's those out there still doing it that way. But that's okay. So what were some of the big events and the big things in 29 Palms that you remember that you're like the impactful moments for you?
Impactful?
Sure. Or funny or whatever. Just moments that you remember that you look back on either fondly or with hate. One of the two.
Well, I really don't know how to answer that. There's a lot of things, a lot of ways I want to answer every question, everything you just said, but I don't want to be that negative person. Somebody recently told me that, just because you didn't get along with them then doesn't mean they're not good people. I'm like, yeah, okay. But no, one big thing, and I was never a part of it because I was a clarinet player, but 29 Palms had at least for the West Coast, had like the premier show band.
Oh yeah.
We did under Gunnery Sergeant Peavy, and he had served under the what was it? Good Lord, who was the infamous band officer in the band field on the East Coast? It was the I can't remember his name, but show band was the way.
Yeah. Peavy works on Little Creek. He's like the highest civilian. Works.
Oh, directly. Is he?
Yeah. Works under the captain for the base.
Yeah. Yeah, I had for the longest time I had with Ken Peavy. I had absolute hate relationship with him.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was his demand for excellence. I mean, it's going to be this way, or you can find another MOS. And, there was a lot of animosity. Not, it wasn't just me, but the band itself felt that way because a lot of the band, like I said, was the replacements that we were replacing. And they're like, we don't want to be here. We hate this place. We don't want to do this. And when I got there, Chief One Officer E-Step was the band officer. Who the hell was the drum major? I don't remember who the drum major was. He left, and then Staff Sergeant Scott, who I believe got promoted to Gunnery Sergeant Scott, became a drum. Well, it was Dan Conley, Master Sergeant Conley. Gunny Conley at the time was a drum major, and then Staff Sergeant Scott was kind of the acting. But Gunny Peavy came in to be the enlisted band leader, and he demanded excellence. I mean, we go out and do a change command, and if one person in the whole entire band screwed up something in it, we get back at 5 o'clock, we're rehearsing.
Yeah.
We'd be there till 8 or 9 o'clock rehearsing. But, at the time, I'm like, why the hell, why would you do this? Why are you just going to sit here? And I get perfection and we need to do this. We need to do that. But it took me a little bit of time to finally realize that he made himself the bad guy. He made himself the one to be hated.
Yeah.
That got the excellence out of everybody. Yeah. And got the teamwork we all had a common bond, and we're like, we hate him. We absolutely hate him. And we would just push and push and push. Like, we're not giving him a damn reason. We're not doing this. And it would make it even worse if we get back. He'd literally walk in and he'd be like, McNany, play the second line to Stars and Stripes. And the whole band's just like, God, please just play it. Just please play it. Just please play it. Or something like that. You'd play it. And, he'd be like, okay. Everybody's go home, And I don't know that was necessarily his end game, but it made me realize that sometimes a unit like that has to have a common enemy and it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to say it other than he chose to be that person that the unit came together over. And the unit, I mean, I'll be honest with you, the unit hated him. Did he deserve it? Probably not.
Yeah.
And I was actually at the sergeant's course. I got promoted to sergeant after 4 years. Let me let you know that. even as a MEOP Marine, I had a hash mark. And I walked into sergeant's course before I continued that conversation. They were like, "You're in a band?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "How the hell do you have a hash mark?" And I was like, "Because I do." But I was I was married at that point, and I was at the sergeant's course, and Gunny Peavy was checking out. So he was in temporary lodging over there. And we got done that day, and I literally left there and went over to temporary lodging and walked in the office, and I said, "Can I get the room for Gunnery Sergeant Peavy?" And they're like, "We can't just give you his room, but we can let him know, you want to give a name and all that." He came out, and he looked at me and he goes, "Sergeant McNany," he goes, "do you need something?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, Gunny," I said, "I just wanted to tell you." And I told him basically everything that I just said.
Yeah.
But I was like, "But I want to tell you how much I appreciate who you were." I learned a lot of good from him. I learned a lot of bad from him too. And I told him that, but he actually did teach me. And that was probably probably the biggest thing I got away from 29 Palms when you asked me that question.
Yeah.
Was that with him, and I met a lot of Marines out there, from Dan Connolly to Gunny Gray was the EBL when I first got there. Gunny Gray was we'd walk into rehearsal with him, and he'd literally finally walk in, and he wanted everybody there 15 minutes before rehearsal. Everybody be sitting there ready to go, and he'd walk in and be like, "The earth is brown, the sky is blue. Have a good day." And he'd just walk out. It was like, the hell just happened? It was just from his, and you knew the band hall in 29 Palms where it was over off a Tanks Battalion.
Yeah.
But the band halls used to be on the other side over by the front gate by the main road. It was two steel Quonset huts. One Quonset hut was, it's the round, like, go over a pile.
Yeah.
Quonset huts was where, the band, also the EBL and the changing rooms and all that, all that stuff for the duty was at. Then you walked across a little, basically it was like a little tiny parking lot. Then you walked into the other one, and that was a rehearsal hall, and that was it.
Wow.
And he would walk from, if it was a nice day, he'd come walking across, and I was like, everybody would joke. He'd be like, looking up at the sky. And if it was nice outside, he'd walk in and be like, the earth is gray, the sky is blue, grass is green. And he'd just turn around and walk out. I was like, woohoo!
I was mistaken a while ago. It's actually Gray is the one that's up here at the school. Who's TV lives close to here though. He lives in that area somewhere, yeah. And he had stopped by several times.
But no, he had an impact on me. I mean, like I said, there was good and bad. It's just like anything. Yeah. But it was that demand that don't accept good enough is good enough.
Right.
You can be better than what you are, and that's what he insisted, and that's what he demanded.
Yeah.
But, in his time frame, then of course, at the time staff sergeant boat rate, and
yeah,
the boat rates got there, and we had master sergeant staff. There was a drum major, and then boat rates got there. I had learned a lot from Matt, which I think you and I had talked about.
Yeah,
he is the master planner, I don't know how else, logistician when it comes to everything and anything. And if you think you're going to trick them, there ain't no.
Yeah.
There's no tricking them. Yeah,
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that is what human being that knew what you knew, and he knew it before you knew it, and he was waiting to see how long it took you to actually do something with what you knew at that point. So,
yeah, it was always a chess game. It was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah,
I learned a lot though. I learned a heck of a lot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You had asked me in the last episode what anything memorable, good, bad, and I got to thinking about it. It was one thing that I've had. It was one of those things I tried to forget about 29 Palms, but I got my first page 11 in 29 Palms. I was non-rect for promotion because of MOS proficiency. And the kicker about that whole thing was we had done with the band there, and we were covering for San Diego, so we got invited down to do the St. Patrick's Day Parade in San Diego. And we went down, and the parade was on I believe it was a Saturday, may have been a Friday, I don't remember now. But either way, we got down the day before, got checked in the building on MCRD, and we had a couple Marines that were in the band at the time that had been stationed at MCRD, like Carly Pendergraft. I don't know if you know her, Sergeant. I think she was a flute player, and she was at MCRD, and I was actually at the School of Music with her. But her soon-to-be husband at the time was a drill instructor at MCRD, and she's like, "Oh, we got to go to the E Club. We got to go to the E Club." Well, obviously most of us were not at the age of 21 yet, but we were, close. We got into the E Club, no questions asked. Not saying that was good or bad. I'm just saying we snuck. How we got in, I don't know. But, we had a couple drinks, and we got back to our barracks room and that to get up in the morning to go do muster in the morning for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Yeah. And, we had the old Silver Eagles, the coach buses in 29 Palms. And, all the gear was loaded underneath of it. And so it was load and crew out. We were got dressed, and we were unloading everything. Of course, we got to unload in uniform. We can't do it in civvies. Right. We got to do it in uniform. So the bus was parked on the side of the road, and on this side was this hill, big grassy hill. And it had rained the night before. And so this guy Richards and I, we were pulling a sousaphone case out of the third bay, and we're in core frames, and we go to pull it out. We get it out, and it swings out because the bus was kind of sitting at an angle, and he lost grip, and he let go of it. So the whole case, that sousaphone case, just in that anvil case, swung like that. And I grabbed a hold of it as hard as I could. And as soon as I did, I'm like, oh, I felt something in my groin. Well, what I didn't realize at the time, I got a hernia from it.
Oh,
so I couldn't do the parade because I'm like, I'm trying to push my intestines back inside of me, and I'm, and I got accused of, well, you were drunk last night. I know what you were doing. So I sat on the bus. We rode the whole right way back to 29 Palms from San Diego. And as soon as we got back, it was like, well, you got your, told a gunny unit, take him up there to the hospital. And they're like, yeah, he's got a hernia. So anyways, I had to have a hernia. And, I had 14 days convalescent leave, which I couldn't leave for. So I got to sit in the barracks. Well, during that time was auditions, which I couldn't take. And next thing I know, all the Marines are coming back to barracks for chow, and they're like, hey, you got to be the company office at 1300. I'm like, for what? I don't know. We were just told to tell you to be down there at 1300. So I'm like, well, hell, I'm on convalescent leave. So I'm getting dressed, and I'm holding my crutch, hobbling down the hill, walking down the hill, and I get down there, get the company office, and banging on that first sergeant's hatch, and he goes, McNany. I was like, yes, first sergeant. He goes, get in here. He goes, so why is it you failed your memorized music audition? I was like, I didn't. What says right here you did. And the EBL sitting in there. And I look at him, and he's just like stone-faced. And I was like, what says right here you did. I was like, first sergeant, I haven't been tested on. I didn't get tested. Well, that's what it says, that this week you had testing on that and you failed it. I'm like, first sergeant, I am on convalescent leave. I have a hernia. I'm literally standing there holding, because he said, why do you keep grabbing your junk? And I'm like, I just had hernia surgery 4 days ago. I still have staples stuck in my crotch, And he goes, seriously? I was like, yes, first sergeant. And he goes, so you haven't been down here to play? I was like, no, first sergeant. And he turns around and looks at the EBL, and he looks back at me. He goes, just sign a damn page 11. I'm like, well, why am I signing a page 11? He goes, you know how many page 11s I have, and I'm still a damn first sergeant. Sign the damn page 11 and get over it. You'll be fine. I was like, okay. So that was one of my biggest stories that I actually kind of forgot about when we talked before. That I remember literally walking from the hospital to the barracks because no one would come and pick me up.
Wow. Man,
when I got dropped
really
off the hospital. And then when I had the surgery from the hospital back, because no one would come and pick me up.
Wow.
And I was like, man, this is a duty station right here, man. I was like, and this was only like 6 months into it, and I was like, man, this is what I asked for. You knew where the hospital was, the horse stables and all that. And I'm walking that long stretch of road. I'm like, cars going by me. I'm like, hey, it's like, little help here.
And nobody stopped to help.
No.
That's good times. Well, I guess maybe that was, just preparing you for the future in the Marine Corps. Because
that was mental toughness. Yeah.
I understand that. Yeah, it makes sense. So were you mentally tough enough to go to another band after that? What? Where'd you end up going?
From there, it was March of '98. Went from there to Marine Corps Logistics Base, Albany, Georgia.
Albany, Georgia.
You want to, we talk about traveling band at like 29 Palms was. Albany made 29 Palms look like, a little stepsister that didn't know what was going on because, it wasn't a big, as far as, ceremonies on base. Yeah, we did colors maybe once a month, stuff like that, maybe twice a month. I don't remember. But that band traveled all up and down the East Coast, Canada. And, I enjoyed Albany quite a bit. I enjoyed it. Learned a lot from some of the leadership there. When I first got there, it was like, what the hell did I just walk into?
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of just running amok kind of stuff. But it's the way a lot of units are. Sometimes they go from good to bad to good to bad. It's just who's there. But
yeah,
we traveled. Flew into Quebec, did Quebec and Quebec City, changing the guard up there, which I think they did once or twice after I had left there. And
wow.
At that time we were running into the air because we used to be able to request air through the Marine Corps. Then I think it had to go through, it was like JOSAC, yes.
Yeah.
And it was hit or miss even the day of whether we still had a bird or not or didn't. And we were supposed to have a flight to go up there. And the day of, they're like, oh, yeah, your bird's canceled. Or no. And it was the Royal, what was it? The band that played for the Changing the Guard in Ottawa. They did, what was it? I forget what the hell they're called now. But somehow they figured it out. They worked it out. They paid to bus us up there. So we had buses come in and we had to, bus all the way up there, get all of our gear up there. And we played with them, did a joint concert. We did that a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. But they then went from there. We wanted us to go to Quebec City and play with them and did a changing of the guard with them. But then, lo and behold, the flight back gets canceled. So it was Gunny Beck, Ty Beck at the time. He was back in Albany. So I was on the phone with him trying to get, that straightened out. He goes, well, I got a bus. We can have a bus there, 2 buses there tomorrow. It was supposed to be 2 buses to get all the gear back and people back because we couldn't fit everything on one bus.
Right.
But they're like, yeah, we 2 buses. Next day shows up. There's 1 bus. They're like, yeah, that's all you got.
Oh God.
So the problem is we had to be back the day after, the 2 days after that for a ceremony on base, a change of command.
Yeah.
And I called Ty and I was like, hey, there was only 1 bus. He goes, well, that's what they said. That was all we're going to get. So I was leaving it up to you to figure it out.
That was nice.
So, yeah. So it was Master Gunnery Sergeant Fuquoles. I said to him, well, we got 1 bus. And he goes, and Chief Warrant Officer Levine was a band officer. He goes, well, guess you're staying here. I'm like, what do you mean I'm staying here? He goes, well, you got to figure out how to get all of our gear back.
Oh, no.
We're taking all the small stuff back. We got enough, as far as sousaphones and tubas and all that crap back. We could get by back in Albany, but we just couldn't get them back. I'm like, okay. So, I had to coordinate with the Canadian military up there to get me, to get a vehicle and all that. and get me to FedEx. And we were all over that city. I'm sorry, the dogs are barking here.
Oh, you're fine.
And it was one of those where it was like, it was a street name in French, but there was drive, street, boulevard, station, but it didn't say which one to go to. So we're back here, going, back and forth all over the city. And we finally get to where we got to go. And the guy's like, he goes, "You have all the paperwork?" And I'm like, "What paperwork?"
Oh, no.
"All the immigration paperwork." And I'm like, "No, I don't know." And the whole time, I'd got a flight booked, and I'm like, "I got to be on an airplane in 2 hours." And, it's like, he goes, "Well, you got to fill all this paperwork out, and, wait, and this and that." So I'm writing crap out, and I'm doing the best I can. And, then it's got to be noted, it's got to be certified. He goes, "Is this true and best?" I'm like, "Yes, so help me God. I swear it's good." Yeah. So they're going through each case, and, "Well, what's in this clear little bottle here?" It's valve oil. And you know what? And then somebody's got something in their case that probably necessarily shouldn't be in there, but it's in there. And it's like, "Well, what is this?" And I'm like, "I don't know." It's just throw it in the trash. I don't, put it in the trash. I don't know why he's got a damn little troll in his. I don't know. It's like, somebody had a bottle of bourbon or whiskey or something. They tried to hide in the cave. They were bringing it back because they were going to, didn't think we were going to get stopped. And I was like,
oh, man.
And while I'm doing all this, the guy from the Canadian military, he was supposed to stay there because he had a box truck and drive me to the airport. He just leaves. I walk out and I'm like, where the hell, where'd he go? And I was like, I got to get to the airport. And the guy's like, "Well, good luck. The airport's 20 miles down the road, 20 kilometers or whatever." I'm like, "Well, how the hell do I get down the road?" I got a backpack and a suitcase basically. And, I didn't even have my uniforms because I sent all that back with the bus. So I had was a backpack and a change of clothes in my hygiene bag. And he goes, I said, "Can one of you guys take me?" And he's like, "No." He goes, "Well, go down to the bus stop. It's down at the corner. They maybe have somebody get on the bus." And I'm like, "Well, how the hell am I going to pay for a bus?" And I'm standing down there and I'm like, just standing there like, well, I'm screwed. And this is really before, like phones like this where you can literally, call an Uber or do this and that. And this dude pulls up and he goes, "Are you American?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you lost?" I said, "Yes and no. I'm trying to get to the airport." "Hop in. I'll take you down there."
Wow.
I'm like, "God, is this dude going to kill me? What, is he, So I get in the whole time. He's just talking. Yeah. And he takes me down to the airport and goes, "Well, have a good day." And I get out and I'm like, holy crap, just made the flight and got back. I get all the way back and I actually beat the band back to Albany.
Oh, wow.
And I got, my wife picked me up at the airport and I got back to the band hall. The band pulled in like 4 hours later and the horns never showed up. The horns got stuck in customs for like a week and a half and never came back. But yeah, that was always an experience that, I didn't experience being stuck in another country without knowing where the heck you were or what, no map, no nothing until we got to Iraq. So,
Oh, man. So that's definitely teaching you a lesson, adapt and overcome at its finest there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
No, I mean, Albany was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, but it was, it seemed to be my plague of, after I left, but it was, 29 Palms got disbanded, is no longer a band. Albany's no longer a band. So, it's one of those interesting things that it's a shame, but I guess it all happened for a reason. I don't know
Yeah.
what the reason is, or it was money, or
Oh, I'm
cost
sure.
effectiveness, or
Yeah.
but no,
It's a yearly thing. It always comes around. They tried to
yeah,
2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago now. They tried to cut 50% of the bands, 50%, and luckily it didn't turn out that way. And in fact, we kept everything, and we added personnel because we're sending Marines now over to Italy to be part of the NATO band over there again.
I had seen something about that. Yeah,
Pretty
that's
wild.
awesome right there.
Yeah.
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 Well, the band feels changed so much that there's what MOS vocalists now,
There is, yeah,
and
vocalists and
things like that. And that was something I didn't realize up to a couple of years ago because I had kind of lost touch with the field. So
yeah, yeah. This definitely. I think it's a good move. I think that we are behind the power curve in the Marine Corps as far as utilizing vocalists.
oh, absolutely,
I
yeah,
don't think we really know how to use them effectively, and not just sending them out to play with a concert band or a a rock band or whatever, but utilizing them for ceremonies, using live for all those other things that we could use them for. I think we're
absolutely.
just now starting to get to a place where that works.
Well, we did so much for so long with you can sing, okay, well you're singing. That's
Yeah,
what we did with the show bands, the rock bands, or just vocalists that a change command. When somebody wanted, I know that I don't think it's the name of it, but proud to be an American, or
yeah.
stuff like that. It was like you can sing, okay, well you're singing it. I mean, it's just what we did for
That
so
could be
long
good,
that
or that could be really
yeah,
bad.
we made a bass player the long life bass drummer or cymbal player, and I don't know if that's still the case or not, but
It still happens. They don't typically stay that for a long time, but when they're needed, they will step in
yeah,
and do it. So it just depends on how strong the drummers are, or how many there are. Not how strong they are, but how many there are. So,
yeah,
but yeah, it just depends. So,
yeah.
is there anything else about Albany that you want to talk about, or nothing else there?
No, it's Southwest Georgia. I'm still here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. All right.
I
Well,
mean,
let's see. Where did you go from there?
can you give me just 1 second? I got to pause for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. No.
All right. So, you nothing else at Albany then?
Well, I've got a lot of stories from everywhere, but what
Yeah.
we can tell, what we don't want to tell. How I knew you're chief warrant officer there at the School of Music, Jack
Yeah,
Davis.
that's right.
Yeah,
He was down there with you. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
It was funny seeing him at your retirement ceremony. Went up and his wife, God, I can't remember her name. What's his wife's name? What's
Marge.
Jack's wife's name? Yes.
Marge.
She instantly knew. Yes, she instantly knew Kelly and me. And
Really?
she came up. Yeah. Well, Kelly had coached their oldest boy in soccer at
Oh,
Albany.
wow. Yeah.
And they were just little
Mm-hmm.
at that
Oh,
time.
yeah.
And that was
They're not so little anymore.
99, 2000 time frame. No,
Yeah.
no, those are some tall, handsome men right
Yeah.
there. Good Lord.
Yeah.
But
It's funny when my family, they're like, "Oh, hey, I got a daughter."
yeah, that's what Kelly was saying. She was actually joking about that. She goes, man, if only Abby didn't have a boyfriend. I was like, yeah, well.
It's good stuff.
No, with Jack, I always liked Jack, but he was prior. I believe he was prior service coming in the Marine Corps, but he had been in, and it was always kind of a, I outranked him, but he had me in time and service, and there was always kind of thing back and forth, but it was never bad. But the day your ceremony, after the ceremony, he was down there. I walked up and I said, Jack, I said, man, it's been a long time. And he goes, yeah, it has. You remind me who you are? I said, yeah, I know I've got a face to forget. Don't worry about it. It was like Via the night the get together you had the night before. He's in there in the corner, and I was like, hey, man. And he's like, hey, nice to see you, brother. And he stood there and looked at him. I was like, okay. And all of a sudden he realized, he goes, oh, man. It's been almost not quite 20 years, but it's close to it, and you don't realize time goes. It's really hard to believe that 20 years ago, you and I were in Iraq.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
It's hard to believe, but
no,
but from Albany, we went through 9/11, and it was kind of one of those, it was the pucker factor of what's going on, what's everybody going to do. Before that, I actually had orders to Okinawa, and my wife was pregnant with our daughter, and I think I was supposed to check in like sometime in March of 2001, and she wasn't supposed to have Abby, our daughter, till she was born February 2nd. But I think her due date was like the last week of January, between that and the first week of February. And it was like, well, can we push these out because she can't travel? And they're like, oh, yeah, no problem. It was MPO 20 at the time. And they're like, yeah, no problem. Like, definitely want to go. We want to go. And, the orders got rescinded quickly, and they gave them to somebody else. I don't know who got them. So I didn't get to do Okinawa. So we went into September 11th and all that. And shortly after that, I got orders to 1st Marine Division at Camp Pendleton.
Awesome.
So by far, probably one of the hardest and most impacting on me, but one that I would never give up and one I would do again. 1st Marine Division. I mean, that's just, to me, I know you got 2nd Marine Division, 1st Marine Division, but, Big Blue was.
That's right.
That was it,
Yeah. I do have Blue Diamond stuff on my tattoo there. So.
Yeah. I keep saying I want to get something, but I'm too big of a wussy to go. I've got 2 tattoos, but I don't have, I keep saying I'm going to get more, but I don't do it. I always wanted to get something with 1st Marine Division on me, but I'm like, what do I do? It's kind of late now as a 50-year-old man to go get. I always wanted to get my dog tags put on me or meat tags, and I never did it. And, Now, who wants to see tattoos on a 50-year-old fat dude? I mean, really out of shape, fat dude at the beach with his dad bod gut hanging out and white as a freaking winter snow. I mean, what?
Hey, there's some freaky people out there. So
yeah. Well, I keep hearing dad bods are a big thing. So not that it matters. I mean, I'm married for 27 years now. So I don't know.
All right. Well, tell me about 1st Marine Division while you were there.
I got there in February. It's like a common thing. It's always the first of the year every time I went someplace. But it was February, March. I had just missed the band. They went to the Winter Olympics in Utah, and they wanted me to go. And that was 2002, and Albany had traveled so much, and it was Staff Sergeant Terrace at the time. He's like, I need all your information, your social, this and this and that. And I sent it all to him, and he goes, well, I need to know when you're going to be here. I was like, I don't want to go. He's like, you don't want to go to the Olympics? I'm like, no, I'm good. We literally, you figure at that time in Albany, say out of a 12-month period, we traveled 6 to 7 months out of the year.
Yeah. That's
so I was like, I don't, like we were in Canada for 3 weeks and we were supposed to go to Ireland or whatever it was for a month and it got canceled. Well, we were literally days from leaving, passports, everything. And it was the whole hoof and mouth outbreak in Europe and that area. So we didn't go, which they have gone over there since. I don't know if it's necessarily Ireland, but they had gone over to Europe and that. But I mean, that was kind of the want for that band to travel. Yeah. And I was like, I'd literally rather have a month to leave here, go see family, drive across the country. We couldn't get into housing, so we had to rent an apartment, get to our apartment, unload, get there, spend a week or two. I don't need, and that kind of ruffled everybody's feathers that I didn't want to go to the Olympics. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't need it. But, as soon as the band got back from that, I had gotten promoted to staff sergeant in Albany, and I was literally selected and to be promoted in Albany before I left. But the warrant never came through. So I literally got to the first Marine Division and technically was a gunny, but had never been promoted.
Yeah.
So I was checking in and I had started checking in and the band wasn't even back yet. And I went to the band and walked in and saw the duty and met Master Gunny Schweitzer. Went in and talked to him. And I had met him before at 29 Palms when he was at Miramar. It was El Toro at the time for Rose Parades and stuff like that. And he had remembered me, but I said, I said, Master Guns, I was supposed to get promoted. He goes, well, we haven't heard anything about it. I was like, well, I was supposed to have been promoted before I left, but I didn't. And, he's like, well, we'll have to check into it. Well, shortly after that, I got promoted. But they literally promoted me in front of the band, and other than a handful of people like Martinez and it was one or two other trumpet player came from Albany. You know who I'm talking about. I don't remember his name now. God, I can see his face, but I can't remember his name.
I don't know.
I always like to wear a kilt. And God, I can't remember his name. It wasn't Mueller. It wasn't Rakowski. Rakowski came later.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I can't remember. Jason Lee.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Martinez was there. Lee was there. They were the only ones that knew me, from Albany. And they promoted me in front of everybody, and everybody's like, who the hell is this? Like, oh, we had all heard your name, but we don't know who the hell you are. And, it was staff NCOs were Yaffa Jones, Ken Surface, Ken Douglas, repair tech. I can't remember his name now. He was a gunny. But, Will Contreras was a drum major. Well, he wasn't a drum major yet. He was the assistant. Gunny or Blue Schweitzer was a drum major at the time. And I was there probably after that, like 2 weeks. And Blue called me in the office. He goes, so why didn't you go? Tell me how you failed out of the School of Music. I was like, I didn't fail out of the School of Music. Well, you failed out of the drum major course. It was a drum major course at the time. Mm. And I said, I didn't fail out of the drum major course. Well, that's not what I was told. I said, well, whoever told you that's a liar, because I didn't. He was a gunny. I was a gunny at that point. I'm like,
yeah.
He goes, well, you're staying here lying. That's a good way to shake it. Lie. And I was like, said, who the hell told you that? All of a sudden, Master Gunny Schweitzer's like, well, you failed out of the course. And I was like, I've never been to the course, Master Guns. I said, I actually tried after my orders were denied, after I lost my orders to Okinawa, because they gave them away because they didn't want to wait for my daughter to be able to fly when she was born. So I never got to go. And of course, they found out that, oh, yeah, that was somebody else. They didn't, it wasn't me. But
Wow.
I had kind of been earmarked at Albany to be a drum major because I got promoted to, I was staff select, and Master Gunny Eccles was retiring. And Master Gunny, as Master Sergeant at the time, came up to me and said, you're the new drum major. I was like, what? He goes, you're the new drum major. And I'm like, I've never spun a anybody in the band's picked up a practice bass and just sat there and messed, we've all done it. Can I spin it? Yeah. Am I proficient? No. He's like, well, you're the new drum major. Said, you're either going to make it or you're going to fail or you're going to be the end of your career. So, I did enough to be able to do it. And, logistically, and, the administrative part, I caught on too quick, and a lot of that was phone calls to Staff Sergeant Gunny Boatwright, talking to him and asking him about stuff, and the admin part and the filing and, stuff like that. But then when I got to Pendleton, there was like, well, we heard you want to be a drum major. And I said, not really. Well, why? Well, you're supposed to go to school and you didn't. You failed out. I didn't fail out. Well, you want to be a drum major. I was like, I was told I was the drum major. It's not what I want to be. Well, what do you want to be? And I was like, well, if I really had to pick, musically, I like to play, but I'm not a conductor. Music theory and the whole aspect of all of that is not something that I'm great at or proficient at. Did I understand it to a point? Yes, but I didn't. To be able to stand up in front of a band and fully rehearse a concert band, I don't know about you, but I couldn't do it at that point. And, as far as a drum major, what little bit I did was maybe 10 ceremonies I did. I could get through the Marines hymn and, stuff like that. But, I couldn't. I'm not going to, you don't ask me to go conduct a ceremony or stuff like that. I'm like, no, that's not what I want to do. Well, what is it you want to do? And I was like, well, what I wanted to do, what I've been trying to do in the field was, repair technician. That's what I want to do. And, it kind of worked out towards the end, but, before we could overly get involved in a lot of that, we went in, we knew probably April of 2002 what we were going to do, and that was Iraq. We knew Afghanistan was already going on. We had troops in Afghanistan. We knew Iraq was coming. So it was field exercise after field exercise, and unfortunately with the band, we know, and I don't speak badly about the band, but it's just how the band field was at the time is, we've got a secondary mission. We're a heavy machine gun platoon. We do this, we do that. But we had minimal training on all of that.
Yeah.
So it was a matter of we had to get that training, and even that training, okay, we spent 6 weeks. You spent 6 weeks on a 50 caliber, a Mark 19, and saws and stuff like that. But it sure as heck doesn't make you proficient.
Yeah.
We didn't have all the training we needed. We still made it happen, and I'm proud of everything we did.
Yeah.
With what we had, and I honestly don't believe the division itself had everything it needed. whether it
Yeah.
be communications gear, whether it had, and that may have just been the Marine Corps itself. We do more with less, so we don't have this, we don't have that. Hell, we had vehicles in Iraq that the rear wheel was running on a bent axle and running sideways at an angle, like rock, 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 And this is supposed to go from Kuwait to Baghdad and back. It's like, really? This is what we got. It's like transmission falling out of vehicles. And the vehicle we were in 03, we got into Iraq, and the vehicle I had, Sergeant Williamson and the whole gun crew was in the back. It has it's like the VIN plate on your vehicle in the door, but it was, I forget where it's at on a Humvee. I was looking at it. That damn plate was, that vehicle had been manufactured in 1989.
Wow.
It had been a Desert Storm.
God.
So it was still running. It wasn't running great, but it still, how many transmissions did it had at that point? Sledgehammers to the rear axle. Yeah, that'll fix it. That'll get you another 500 miles right there. But,
yeah, that's good. Yeah, everything was at that time it was all soft doors and all that stuff.
Yes. Yeah, we all got a rude awakening, even going back in 04 when you went with us.
Mm-hmm.
That all of a sudden it's like, where the hell did all these hardback hatchbacks, Humvees come from? Ladders. It's like, how the hell does that thing have an AC unit hanging out the window? It's like, we're all like, what? We took all the doors off of ours. It's like, we had sandbags laying in there, and they're like, yeah, you got to get rid of sandbags because these vehicles weren't made for that. The transmissions are falling out of them, and you can't. We were hanging. You remember they were making, getting a local like welders and machine shops to make metal plates to hang on the door, hang on the sides, and it's like, yeah, take them off. These vehicles can't handle it. Vehicles are breaking down. They won't. It's like, what do you want us to do? It's like, well, do you want to be broke down or do you want the armor? It's up to you. I mean, you want. It's like, well, I'd kind of like to not have. I like to have the armor and not be broken down.
But hey, that's one too many things.
Yeah,
you can't have it all.
Yeah.
Wow. So
I mean,
go ahead. No, I was going to ask how your experience was in the first deployment.
Well, it was a lot for, we had, at the time, I think he retired as Master Gunny, but Gunny Jones, he was a Desert Storm vet, so he had a lot of experience to bring into it as a junior Marine at the time. But, man, we had a lot of good Marines, a good unit. I think we had a good one going in 04, too. We had some that carried over, some got out. But, I mean, it was the unknown. And I think even for Marines that train for that every day, I mean, it was an unknown that nobody knew what we were going into. You had no, it was the worst of the worst. And the worst part of it, granted being over there sucked, but coming back, you look at it after the fact, it's like, okay, it was what it was. But the worst part was, with the band, I was like, okay, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks. Love you guys, give your kids and wife a hug and a kiss. And the worst part for me was walking away from your family.
Mm-hmm.
For me, and me not worrying about myself, but worrying about them, and that's a big thing that you have to put into perspective, that hopefully everything's in place back home, and that's something that the Marine Corps started. And I hope they have definitely continued, family readiness stuff for families and spouses back home and resources.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten better. I can say that. I wouldn't say it's perfect yet, but it's definitely gotten better over time. So,
yeah, other than our family resource officer having an affair with one of our Marines' wives, but I mean, other than that, I mean, it's.
Okay.
I thought you knew that story. I thought you knew that story.
I don't remember that.
I'll talk to you about it after. I don't want to name names or say.
Oh yeah.
But
sounds good.
But
so then you okay, so you're over there. How long were you on that deployment?
we sent the Ford for the '03 war. Went over in December, and the rest of us got over there like the first week of January of 2003. War started in March.
Yeah.
And we were over there till just shy of September of '03.
Okay.
And then got back to good old Camp Pendleton, and they're googly moogly dogs. But anyways, we got back, and it was in August, first part of September. Got back, and we, of course, instantly had to come back and play welcome home ceremonies for everybody else coming back. And then it may not have been August. It may have been towards the end of, I honestly don't remember now. I just remember us playing parades out in town once everybody got back and doing all that. That was a thing that, you see pictures and that, like World War II when everybody came back, and World War One and in New York City and that. And that was an amazing thing.
Ticker tape parade.
To be a part of in Oceanside, especially a military town like Oceanside, to do that. I mean, that was really, really something to see how people came out and just wasn't even just, well, a lot of the people in that area are former military families, grew up in that area from military, whether it be Navy or Marine Corps, and that was an awesome feeling to be a part of that. And that was one of those parades. It wasn't super long, maybe a mile, but it was like, everybody was just, playing and strutting. And, it's like, here we go. This is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say that's a good thing that came out of like the whole country kind of came together at that point.
And that's a sad thing after like 9/11 and that, the country was a different country than it was before that. And it was that way for quite some time. And then it's all just kind of disappeared. I think the lackluster of Afghanistan and Iraq went away after all of those years.
Yeah.
And I would agree with unfortunately, not to say that it was I don't mean to say lackluster. You know what I mean? It's not, wasn't a great thing at that point, but I think a lot of it was still a necessary evil, unfortunately. But there was a disdain, a lack of liking, lack of caring at that point for it. Mm-hmm. So it just was out of sight, out of mind. And then when everything happened with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and unfortunately, but we got back from '03, and then when did you get there? In '03 or '04?
I think it was just like December '03. So it was after you guys were back for a while.
Yeah.
And I checked in.
Yeah. And then lo and behold to us, we were gearing up to go back again. So
yeah, that's right. So I got to deploy with you the second time.
Yeah.
So how was that deployment for you? The second one?
I think the second one was worse than the first one, honestly, for me personally. I mean, it was longer, but it was, we, in '03, the first one, we encountered some things, but it wasn't it as far as us being engaged and us engaging and stuff like that, it wasn't there. I mean, don't get me wrong, the whole process sucked, but there's a lot of Marines that were in a whole heck of a lot more suck than we were in. We were in that storm of the century or whatever it was, where you couldn't see for 4 days straight, and I've never experienced anything like that. I was like, 29 poems. This place ain't got nothing on 29 poems. I'm like, I remember sitting there, I'm like, man, I'll go back to 29 poems any day, and I'll drink like Banditti before we got to deal with this crap again. It was like, I just remember sitting there. I mean, it rained and rained and rained and rained. And then, the wind kicked up so bad you couldn't, that was the dawn of all the new gear. We had finally, we had the new camis on, we had the neck gaiters and the beanies and the new molly packs that sucked, and the frames broke, and all this new crap that was supposed to be the best of the best, which has gotten weeded out, I'm assuming. The new well, it wasn't the old flak jackets, it was the new whatever they were called, what the hell were they called? LBV or
LBV?
No. It was basically we called it flak jacket still, but you could put the sappy plates in it and all that. That gear was better. But I remember sitting there with a beanie pulled down and that neck gaiter pulled up so far, and we got the old crappy goggles from like Desert Storm, and everybody's kind of wearing them. I mean, literally, you got mud running out of your nose and you're coughing up, just dirt and crap. And finally, when it got to the point where the wind and everything had stopped, it was rained so hard, but it was like you were on Mars. It was just red. The sun,
wow.
You could just see this there was just this weird glow that you couldn't see but maybe 20 feet in front of you. So we're out there trying to lay out gun positions, trying to look at a map where the hell we're at. We're off a hard paved road and trying to get everything out. And of course, we're running comm wire. We didn't have radios, so we're trying to run comm wire, and the mud was probably a foot and a half deep, and you're just trying to get through it. And the funny thing was, and it was, you're sitting there and you finally just stopped. And when it started, like in 2 days, we were there. We got stopped there because the Marine Corps is moving fast, so north so fast. And the Army was coming in from the east, and actually from like the northwest or the west, that, it was east to west, that we were moving faster than the Army was.
Yeah.
And they're like, you got to stop. And we sat there for, it may have been 7 days, but it felt like 2 weeks.
Wow.
But we were there long enough that the ground hardened.
Wow.
They're out there trying to dig holes, and next thing you know, it's like concrete. But you're literally looking at it. And I remember taking when we went over, your MREs and that, you would strip your MREs down to just, the meal, this and that. And you stick your spoon in or whatever. But you had your little Tabasco. And I remember looking, and there's seashells in the dirt.
Really?
And it was like, how the hell are there seashells? And the one captain who was, he was like S2 or whatever, like intel. I went into the battalion CP or whatever it was. He was sitting there, and I said, anybody knows there's like seashells? And he goes, yeah, this whole area used to be under the ocean. It used to be all underwater. This whole area in biblical times was under water. So there's little tiny like seashells in the dirt. I remember I was like, man, I'm going to save some of these. Of course, I didn't get to bring it back, but it was a weird thing. I'm like, I'm in freaking Iraq, and there's seashells in the dirt.
Yeah, that is very strange.
But, as far as that, we went all the way to Baghdad, and I could tell you stories about that too, but it's interesting to sit on like high rise, like 4 or 5 story buildings they look like barracks buildings, but there was office buildings and there were barracks and stuff. And we had to put gun towers on top of each one of those barracks when we finally got to Baghdad. But they were close enough together that they were like 6 feet apart.
Oh, wow.
From each other. And I don't know who it was that got there before we did, but then we got there, we had to set it up. But there was like the temporary flight line, like at 29 Palms, the metal flight line that locked in with each other. There, we got that. We were literally sitting it between the buildings, so you can run across it to go from building to building to building. But you could, you're looking down and you're 5 stories up, and it's like, shit, I don't want to run across this, but you run across it in the dark. I remember going from one, and you'd be sitting up there, and all of a sudden be like, just tracers just whistling every which direction, and watching. Then all of a sudden the daylight come up, you go up and watching traffic. There was no traffic lights, no nothing, because they had killed all the water, killed all the power, and just cars slamming into each other and people running up. And all of a sudden we were there on a Sunday, and there was a mosque, and there was a Catholic church. Then there was a Protestant church, and there was call to prayer in church. And then the Catholic church was going off, and it's like, holy crap, just to watch it. And that was one thing that, none of us realized, that was one thing Saddam Hussein actually tolerated, was religion. He actually believed that people had the right to practice whatever religion they want as long as they were loyal to Iraq.
Yeah.
He didn't care what your religion was, but as long as you were loyal to Iraq. And that was an interesting thing. But with that deployment and the second one, the only reason I say the second one was worse, probably more mentally, was just the mental aspect of the whole thing, which I think you would agree to.
Yeah.
That, we replaced the 82nd Airborne, I believe it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And what did they call it? We renamed it Blue Diamond, but it was
I don't remember what they called it.
I don't remember what their name for it was, but
yeah, I know that deployment, that was the only one I did, but it for sure, the mortars, I swear to God, they were very proficient with mortars. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that was,
they knew what they were doing.
They learned the art of using our own, because, when we got there, what was our main source was those stupid little Motorola radios.
Mm-hmm.
And they had those set up on different channels and frequencies to set mortars off, and garage door remotes and RC car remotes, and it was.
Yep.
That's one lesson. I don't think, I'm by no means expert. I like to follow history and watch history stuff, but that's one thing I don't think we, as a military, not the Marine Corps per se, but as a military general, learned from Vietnam.
Yeah.
When I don't know that we underestimated our enemy, but to me, they appeared to be a hell of a lot smarter than we were, and how they figured things out. And, now I remember coming back even in 03 and 04, people were like, well, that's a third world country. I'm like, no, it's not.
They knew what they were doing.
It may have been how we left it, but it was not a third world country. I promise you. They had highways and, electricity and, running water. And, it's not a third world country. Different parts of it, southern Iraq was more barren desert, but hell, we were sitting off the Euphrates River.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
they had a
That's very.
dam that was generating power and bridges,
Mm-hmm.
and
And the city was huge. The city of Ramadi is huge.
oh,
So
it's yeah, and that's one thing that I don't think any of us realized at first how big it really was.
mm-hmm.
Until we were there and actually started to get to see the maps and how big Ramadi actually was. That and then it was when Marines went in to take, it wasn't just Marines, but from our side, Ramadi and Fallujah and stuff like that. Granted, I didn't do it, but how enormous, and to watch documentaries and that now, how big those cities were.
Oh,
They weren't little rinky-dink towns. It wasn't like a village. It wasn't
yeah.
a mile by a mile. It was. We're talking huge
Yeah. Wow.
populations. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I'd say that was definitely one of the most interesting things is seeing how developed they were and how smart they were with what they were
yeah.
accomplishing. And they accomplished quite a bit. I mean,
Oh
they
yeah.
were getting us,
Well, that
to,
was the thing. That's why I say third world, which they're not. They weren't, and they aren't. But we. I'll say me. I won't say anybody else. Didn't think they had the intelligence or the education to be able to do that. I mean, how many of those over there had the education? But a lot of those people that were there doing that to us weren't necessarily local, people that lived in Ramadi or even Iraqis. It was people that
yeah,
had come in and been trained to do that.
yeah, very true.
But
What is something that you are like take from that as those deployments, both of them, as you're moving forward or whatever, that's kind of stuck with you, whether it be positive, whatever, but something that you could grab hold of.
I think for me, and you know this with me, Andrew, that especially 2004, the second time, OIF2, I think we called it,
Yeah.
was affected me, and I didn't realize it affected me. And I went out and sat here and there with some of the towers, but I wasn't sitting in a gun tower every night, and I wasn't running towers like you were. And you were talking to me, I was talking to you. Hey, go here, go do that. I was sending you in a damn gas attack and crap like that. Uh, we laugh about it now, but man, that was probably one of the hardest things that day that I had to ask you to go into, because I didn't honestly.
It was
And
that was a good story. It's a good story.
yeah, it's a good story. Man, I got my
It was
tail
yeah,
tore.
so it's all good.
I got my tail tore apart on that one. How would you freaking send? I'm like, what did you want me to do, Sergeant Major? I mean, what? I flat out told him. I said, Sergeant Major, do you want me to call you and send you in there? How dare you stand there and talk to me like that? I was like, what? And that was, and that was, I guess, from getting a Panel 10 and like 03 and then 04, I changed a bit as far as my mentality and
Yeah.
became a little more bitter. And I watched, especially in our field, the when you take Marines that their job is a specific job, and yeah, that was our job, and that's what our secondary mission was. But take them out of their MOS and then start questioning them for promotions and stuff like that. I don't want to say I was an advocate, but I used to get extremely perturbed about. And I think you sat into a few of those rec non-rec meetings and stuff like that. That it used to really bother me to watch. But I started getting more numb and numb to, excuse the language, but giving a fuck about certain things. And I'm going to tell you what I want or what I think, and this is what. I'll argue with you. I don't care who you are. You know, hell,
Yeah.
what was the S3? Captain Hammond, he and I got into it a couple times. But
Mm-hmm.
it was an understanding when it was all said and done. And he even said it to me. He said, "You know, this is all business, right, Gunny?" I was like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "All right, as long as we're good." You know, he was just a different kind of animal. You know, he was just him and Gunny Olson and stuff like that. But
mm-hmm.
but when we left there, because I've got a thumb drive, which I'm probably not supposed to have, but I've got a thumb drive of every indirect attack we have.
No kidding.
With the coordinates of where it hit, impacts, whether it was injuries, deaths, everything that was recorded, I've got it, and I kind of I've had it stashed away for years. But if somebody wants to
all
take
kinds of photos and all kinds of stuff, I have no clue.
Well, I've got a whole topographical map that was laminated, a blue diamond, and I could literally sit there and go over it and tell you everything still to this day. But we got hit so many damn times on that freaking base.
Oh yeah.
You know, and granted, we weren't front lines and we weren't kicking in doors and gunfights. We had some in the towers engaged, and was it Morgan? Not Morgan. Was it Morgan or which one?
Not that time.
Got a Purple Heart.
Yeah. Morgan did, but it was the next. It was his next deployment.
Yeah, but one of them got something. I don't remember what it was now. No, combat action ribbon for.
Oh yeah, being in the tower. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like.
It was, but
Triple E or like 6 or 6 Alpha or whatever the hell we called all of them now, but the impact of sitting there and watching it, and I mean, and it sounds crazy to say, but I would have rather been out there, where I could have actually done something instead of sitting here doing this and calling here and plotting on a map. Yeah, man, all that stuff's important.
Yeah.
But, it was one of those things that I think you saw it because I think you sat in that in base ops and did it.
Yeah.
But you saw how hectic it got and how crazy it got could get real quick. And you're trying to call in to, what do we call it? J-Dam Palace. I don't remember what the hell.
Yeah.
Call up there and call stuff in at a hurricane point, and you're calling in, so-called grid so they can actually freaking launch mortars out or artillery out there to where we're trying to, where we're seeing it. And the impact that, and, we had one day, and Staff Sergeant Peyton, Joey Peyton was with me because he was actually sick and he went up to medical. And I had taken his shift, or I think it was his shift, but I think Rakowski came in and Chris came in and relieved me for 30 minutes to go up and eat. I wasn't worried about eating. I was just want to go check on Joey. And as I'm walking up the main drag, you had Calm Company over here on your right-hand side, and truck, and then MP Company. And I see Joey walking towards me. So I got to a point in front of a truck company and stopped. And he came walking down from medical. I said, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Some reason my iPad just went squirrely. But he came walking down. I said, "Hey, what? Can you hear me?"
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
All right. And I was like, "Hey, what's wrong?" He said, "Oh, I got some stomach bug or something." And all of a sudden you hear dum, 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 dum. And it was like Joey just took off like a bat out of hell, man. He took off running. He ran straight to truck company, ran in there, And I just stood there and I got off the dirt road into the dirt and it went down to the river. And we had set up that ISO container with a tower up there because there was this so-called threat from the river. So we had to watch it. And I remember it was just, you just hear them coming in, just don't, 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 don't.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at that tower and all of a sudden, it just, watch it come in and hit it, blew the doors off the back of it. And I was maybe 50 feet from it at that point, and they just put me over backwards.
Wow. And
I remember jumping up. I get up and I'm like, and I'm sucking wind, and I'm thinking, like that. And I look down and there was a little chunk of metal stuck in my flak jacket. And we weren't, for some reason, we weren't wearing flak jackets, but I put it on when I went up there that day. And I just remember grabbing it, pulling it out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here. And I look up in the tower, and all I see is a damn helmet laying up there.
Oh, no.
And I took off running for the tower, and the ladder, because we had a wood ladder up there, it was laying on the ground, and I pick it up and threw it up there, and I climb all the way up the tower. When I got up the tower, all I see is a damn helmet and stuff like that. But that was an MP company container. It was full of freaking pepper spray, CS gas.
Yeah.
And a damn thing went off. It was going off, and I was standing up there, and I was like sucking that in, and instantly I'm like, it's freaking gas. It was a damn gas around it, something like that. And I fell out of the back of the container.
Holy crap.
And I'm trying to get myself back away from it. And I'm still looking because all I saw was a damn helmet. And I'm like, where the hell are the Marines? You're supposed to be 3 freaking Marines in this tower. And all of a sudden I hear people coming from this way yelling, you okay? You okay? And it was the CO from MP Company and the gunny and a bunch of them running down on truck company. And Joey came out. And next thing I know, I can hear Edmondson's voice. I'm like, where are the Marines? Where are the Marines? I don't know if you remember this or not, but those idiots crawled out of the damn tower and went down the river and were hiding in the bushes and smoking.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Well, it was a good thing they were smoking, I guess.
Yes.
They didn't get hit.
And all I remember is standing there, and that was after Gunny Lane had gotten killed when Yoffin and I were there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that day I shut down. I got up, crawled back, and I just went all the way back and just sat on the ground and just sat there. And they kept coming like, you okay? Medical, I was like, I'm fine. Leave me the hell alone. Just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. And Edmondson came up and I started yelling at him. I'm like, leave me the hell alone. Leave me alone. And I mentally shut down at that day. And that's the day that I don't know how these other guys did it, but I just did.
Yeah.
And that was a day that changed a lot of things for me in my history after the Marine Corps. And it's taken me a long time to change a lot of that. So there had been a domino effect of incidents before that. I think we already mentioned, like, Gunny Lane was in June of, when we were over there, and just the never-ending nonstop crap coming in every day. It just takes a toll on you. And I think that day in particular, I just remember sitting down, and I'm like, I'm done. I just, mentally, it's like I didn't care anymore. And I don't mean that I didn't care about, like you guys there or what was going on. I was just emotionally, I shut down. I changed at that point from who I was to somebody that just didn't. Yeah, I don't really know how to explain it. The mental side of it. I mean, literally, I became so emotionally numb to everything that
It's
it
like
just
emotions out, and that way you didn't have to deal with them. Emotions were
yeah
gone. Yeah.
yeah. If you just don't care anymore, at that point, it's like it seems to make things a whole hell of a lot easier. But that's not a way. I'm sorry, my dogs are.
Don't even worry.
That's not a way to live life. Especially when you get back and have a family and stuff like that. So,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's not. But that's stuff like that are things that we weren't. I mean, you understand the consequences of war and stuff like that, but you don't really. I don't. Me personally, don't think we were ever given the tools and the resources to deal with that.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd agree with that.
Like I've said before, I don't claim to be a combat Marine. I wasn't by any means, but those guys dealt with the same things and had to experience a whole heck of a lot worse. And I several years after that, I remember talking, and I guess we can get into that in a little bit, but talking and to a counselor. And I was like, why is it affecting me, but it doesn't affect other people? And that just drove me crazy. But I mean, you remember before we were coming back, remember we had to go sit in a little makeshift chapel and do these little, this supposed class, it was prepping us to go back into the regular world. And it's like, okay, there wasn't enough. And you'd think we as a military, the Marine Corps, would have learned our lessons from, like Vietnam and the Gulf War and, people coming back to have things in place. Hey, we need to look at this stuff. We need to identify things and have things in place. But I think a lot of it is all intended to be self-reported, which is something that is not going to happen.
Yeah, very true. And the one thing that coming back, I just remember that one sitting down. I don't ever remember anything after going and like, seeking help wasn't a thing, or maybe it was, we just didn't do it. But it wasn't readily available.
You able to see me?
Yeah. So yeah, I can see you fine. Yeah.
All right. You went out. I could see you, but you're all blurred out, and you were cutting out a little bit.
Oh, that's probably my Wi-Fi. Hopefully, it holds up.
That sounds like mine here in this house. Good Lord.
I'll sit up a little bit. Talk about when you came back, unless there's something else you want to talk about in Iraq specifically, but talk about when you came back. How was that for you?
I mean, initially it was fine. I mean, we were all just glad to be back. I mean, get to see your family, but I mean, it was it's like anything. It's a reintroduction into life. We didn't have what we were over there 8 months, 9 months.
Yeah,
and
8.
Yeah. Granted, we had some opportunities for communication and connectivity back home. But
true.
that was a lot different than in 03 because that stuff just wasn't in place at that time. But it's still not the same as actually physically being able to see your wife and your kids, or to hug or kiss your wife, or hug your kids, or pick them up, and So yeah, you're more than happy to be home. But a lot of things I don't. In my case, it didn't rear its ugly head till a little later. We got back to Pendleton, and We didn't go anywhere because we got 04. We didn't go anywhere in 05, did we?
Mm-mm.
Was that
No.
06 when the band joined with 5th Marines and went back over?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, because that was the year I left to go to repair school. The school that I had tried to go to times.
Oh, say it again.
Go to instrument repair school.
Yeah.
I tried to go in 03. Yeah, I don't know if it's me or
it could be me because, like I said, I'm in the RV with the different Wi-Fi setup, so I'm hoping for the best.
But what I was saying is I had applied to the repair school in 03 and 04, and I got denied in 03 because the answer I got was if I had wanted to go to this school, I would have figured out a way not to deploy.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
that's how it works.
Yeah, it's just like the Marines that got stop lost, couldn't go anywhere when the war broke out. It's like, oh yeah, if you really wanted to get out, you could have. I mean, since when do you go into war and you're like, hey, I really want to go to this school. I'm thinking I'm going to sit this one out right now. And I was like, seriously? But then
wow,
Dan Hungel got there, Master Sergeant and Master Gunny Hungel. I guess he got promoted after he got there. And he was a repair tech, and I really started talking with him and working with him quite a bit to try to improve, to get a better chance at applying again in 2004. And then, of course, we went back again. And I don't remember who all applied. I know Andy Kozane applied. I don't remember who all. What was her name? Or I think she was Paris Island. Flute player, Martha something.
Martha, yeah.
Yeah. She got to go. And I think, was it Streeter? I think Streeter.
Streeter's a drum major, right?
No, it may not have been Streeter. Somebody, I don't remember who the heck it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It was from San Diego, honestly. I don't remember. But, that one kind of hurt too, because all of a sudden there's people applying that there was more than just them and me that applied, but they're all like, well, Andy had a B billet as a recruiter and things like that, and I love Andy Kozane to death, but it didn't make it sting any less. And he knew it.
Yeah.
And then one of them that got selected to go actually dropped the order, so they didn't want him. Changed their mind.
No kidding.
So they had an opening, and they still wouldn't. They're like, "Well, it's too late now. No, we're not pulling you to go." Because you remember Kozane left in like May when we were over there in 04. But yeah, anyways, we got back, and I finally applied again in 05 and got it that time. Got selected. But
and then you went from Pendleton all the way up to the Red Wing, Minnesota, right? For the school.
Yeah, good old school of
how was
repair.
That? Did you
I had
enjoy
a blast. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a nice break after the last couple years. Myself and it was Jose Espinoza, your buddy.
Yeah,
Jose Espy. Were the two Marines there in that class. Of course, they split us up, and I was in one side because they've got so many people in the program that they break it up into two different sections. It's like woodwinds and brass. So while one semester one group's doing brass, the other was doing woodwind, and then you rotate the next semester.
Yeah.
And we just do the same class that they just did. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it because it's really what I enjoy doing is working with my hands and fixing things and learning how things work and repairing things and taking something that's looks like junk and making it brand new. So I was really excited about that. And I got a call one day from Mike Edmondson, Chief Warrant Officer Edmondson. He's like, "Hey, where do you think you're going after that?" And I was like, "I have no idea." I'd reached out to MPO 20 and asked them what choices there were out there. And I don't really remember now, other than Albany.
Right.
And Mike was like, "Well, I really use you here in Albany." And I was like, "Sir, I've already been there. I don't have no interest in going back to Southwest Georgia." I didn't dislike it. The only main reason I thought, man, I'd like to go back there is because I love to archery hunt, and I could archery hunt on base, and I bow hunted the heck out of that base when we had lived there before. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get to go back and get to hunt, And like my wife was already, worked at the hospital here. So she had already been talking to people here, and they're like, yeah, if you want a job, you got a job here. We knew the area, and we're like, well, we could move back there and buy a house. And so that's what we did. I agreed to go to, come back to Albany. But we, not necessarily lived in Albany, but we lived the next city over in Leesburg, bought a house. And it was probably, we go back to the mentally shutting down and the numbness. It really started to hit me in Minnesota when we were up there.
Yeah.
And, Espy and I were close, talked every day, stuff like that. And he'd come up and eat dinner with us, and we'd go out, and he'd come up to the house and hang out. But it was the separation from not being around the Marine Corps and around Marines in general.
Yeah.
We were there with a bunch of, granted, I think there was a couple people that were my age or a little older than me by a couple years, but everybody else was 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, and all they wanted to do was do what they were, what they wanted to do. And it just wasn't something that I wanted to do. I had a family and stuff like that. So, and in a case like that, my wife worked nights and she took a travel nurse assignment. And so she'd leave to go to work. I'd just be getting home from the school. And, we had 2 kids. Our son started playing hockey up there in Minnesota, and my daughter was in dance and all that. So as soon as I got done doing, got home, we had to, I was running in different directions, just like parents do. And I would finally start, and get back, get them fed, get them cleaned up and in bed. And I'd start on homework and stuff at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Start studying for tests. Wow. And, I would do that till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And then turn around and get up to get them up, to drop them off, But it was that it was there that things started. I started noticing changes in me. And my wife did too, but we kind of caused arguments and fights, but I didn't know what was wrong with me. And like I said, we left there and got to Albany, but I had really started. What you doing?
Sorry, I was there. I think it's my screen, my camera makes me fuzzy, so I probably need to clean it. But continue on, continue on as I try.
But I really started to drink a lot at night, and I still drink bourbon, but I was excessively drinking at night, and still studying and doing, passing that, the repair school. But it was just, and it's all an excuse, but it was just, it numbed the feeling. I didn't know what the feeling was. And I remember one day, because from where we lived in Hastings, Minnesota, to Red Wing, where the school was at, it's like an hour and 15-minute drive, something like that, maybe an hour and a half. depending on the weather, snow and stuff. And every day I would pass this church. There's always, cars there. And there was one day I was going down to school and was at school and driving back. I was hurting. I knew something wasn't right with me. And I saw that church and I passed it. I kept driving and driving, and I laid on the brakes and did a U-turn and went back to the church.
Yeah.
And I walked into the church, and there was, some, I don't want to say it was a woman there, but I don't remember. She said, "Can I help you?" I said, "I don't go to church here. I drive by it every day." I said, "But I kind of needed somebody to talk to. Is there anybody here I could talk to? Is the pastor here, minister?" And she said, "Well, he's here. Let me go check." So he came out and he said, "Well, what's wrong?" And I was just kind of talking. I was like, I was in Iraq and this and that, and I'm in the Marine Corps, and they sent me up here to go to a school in Minnesota, and at Red Wing. And I said, "But I've been having, some issues mentally that I don't know what's going on." And I said, I need to talk to somebody. And he goes, "Well, there's really nothing I can do to help you."
Wow.
I said, "Well, I'm not asking you to help me. I just need to talk." And he goes, "Well, come to church on Sunday and then we'll see. Maybe we can talk then." And I was like, turned around, left. I was like, never went back in. I was like, yeah, screw you too. And that was kind of my thought. Don't get me wrong. I believe there's a greater power than all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But, I believe you grew up going to church and in church, and,
Yeah.
I did too. But I saw, as I got older as a kid, I saw where church was, it was like a battle of the families in the church to who could run the church and who could make the decisions for the church. And, it was the Sunday Christians. And it really, I don't want to say it gave me a bad taste for religion, but it wasn't something I was like, I can still believe in God, but I don't, or believe in something bigger, but I don't have to go to church to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just kind of detached myself from going to church. But I didn't even go back that incident too at the school at Red Wing. We all had like I think Jose and I had our own guidance counselor, and they handled, ordering all of our equipment, the Marine Corps stuff, all of our tools and toolboxes and everything we needed, which was nice because all the other students got a list and said, "This is all the stuff you need day one you show up, so you better have it." Where we showed up and it was already there, which was nice.
All packaged up, sitting next to your workstation.
Yeah, it was, toolbox was there, and it was like, holy cow. But I actually went to speak to her one day. I said, "Hey, is there any?" She said, "Well, if you ever need anything, let me know." So I went to talk to her, and I said, "Do you have a couple minutes?" She's like, "Well, yeah." And I started talking to her, same like I was talking to this minister. And she's like, "Well, I don't really know what I can do for you. I'm more of a guidance counselor for education. I'm not a social worker." And that's exactly what I'm not a social worker.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, does the school have resources for this kind of stuff?" And she goes, "Well, you'd have to tell me what's wrong for me to be able to point you in the right direction." And I was like, "I don't know what's wrong."
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and it was just kind of in my mind, I was like, yeah, nobody cares. So just keep it to yourself. Just deal with it. Have a couple extra drinks tonight. And by morning, maybe it'll be better. But, it's kind of like what I'm doing now. But
well, that's two things in a row. While
yeah.
you were, just seemed like there was nothing there to help,
Yeah. And I don't believe that, I may be wrong even. I mean, that was 2006. I don't know if the resources that are available now, which may still not be adequate. I don't know if the resources that it's even now were in 2006, like through through the military,
from what I
through the
know,
Marine Corps.
When we went up and visited up there, it was much different. Like they were all about taking care of the Marines, making sure they had everything they needed. Trying to put them out with the community and stuff. Maybe it's changed for the better.
They were good for that, when we were there too. I mean, they loved us. Yeah. And I can't necessarily fault her for what she was saying. I can fault the minister. I mean, it's like, what aren't you supposed to be here for people?
Yeah. That's kind of
your job. You don't know me, I don't know you, but I'm coming to you because I don't know. I don't know how to say it. Maybe I'm thinking wrong. I really don't know. But
no, I think you're saying it the right way. I mean, now growing up in church, my dad was a minister, stuff like that. But it's just like being a Marine and counseling Marines. They're going to come up to you, and they're going to have an issue right then. You're busy doing things, but you're like, okay, I'll put my stuff on the back burner, and then I listen to it, and we try to figure it out, take them wherever they need to go or whatever. It's the same type of deal. If you're a minister, if you're practicing your sermon or something like that, you put it on the back burner. If somebody's there and asking for help, you help. That's your job.
Yeah.
At least.
Well, that's what I assumed, but I could be wrong. It doesn't mean they're all that way. But
true.
I think if I remember right, he was like,
sorry, they don't all get training on that type of stuff either. A lot of them, depending on and stuff, like there's no training. It's just, it's kind of how my dad was. He didn't have any formal training to become a minister. He just started doing it. But you never know.
Yeah. Well, the big thing for me is sometimes everybody needs somebody to hear them, just to listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you may not have any answers to what I'm asking, but just listen to what I'm trying to say to you. I mean, just listen. And a lot of times, if you let somebody talk to you, that person can figure out the answer to their problem sometimes just by talking. And that's really what I needed. And it, my wife since then has said, well, why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you say something? I said, because I didn't want you to know something was wrong.
Yeah.
What did you want me to say to you? I think I'm broke. Something's really fucked up with me. And I'm screwed up in the head or, do you, and that's like she said, well, that's what I'm here for. And that's what you're here for me. She said, if I came to you, would you think differently? I said, well, no, I wouldn't. She goes, well, why did you think I was going to think differently of you? And she blamed herself on a lot of things. She said, I saw the signs and I just ignored them or wanted to think you were just being a jerk or being an ass about something. And it was like, no, I just, I love my wife, and I love her today. But anyway, I've never been a guy because I didn't grow up in a family where everybody was super affectionate and held hands, or see my dad go up and hug my wife or give her a kiss or say, I love you or stuff like that. I didn't grow up seeing that. So I had to almost force myself. And that sounds terrible to say, but force myself to do it, with Kelly when we were girlfriend, boyfriend, and got married. And once I started doing it, it became a habit.
Yeah.
It wasn't something strange to me anymore. But then mentally where I was at, I reverted back to, yep, we're in the same house. Love you too. Stuff like that. And, there was no emotional connection between us at that point. And, and when we got back to Albany, I had actually checked in, you do a little check-in sheet. It was over because they built a new Navy clinic since we had been here last, but when we left in 2001, but, it was in the old Navy clinic, but they had, I don't even remember what it's called. You probably can tell me that it's like people have dealt with like when you're getting out and stuff, you could go to them and say, like college credits, what you
resource or
yeah,
a resource counselor or something like that.
yeah, something like that. Yeah. And when I was over there checking in, and he said, "Where are you coming from?" And I told him, and for that, I was at Pendleton and talking to him about stuff, and he goes, "How you doing?"
Oh, I lost you. It's probably me. When you come back on, you're gonna have to repeat that. Yep, totally lost you. Yep. Okay, you got to go back. You checked in, and he said,
he said,
"Are you?"
how are you doing? He'd asked where I was coming from, all that. And at the time, I had gotten promoted to Master Sergeant in Minnesota. So he's like, "Well, how you doing, Master Sergeant?" I was like, "said I'm fine. Ready to get to work, do what I got to do." And he's like, "No, really, how are you?" I said, "I'm fine." He goes, "Why don't you sit down for a second?" And he goes, "I'm being dead serious." He was a counselor too, but he was like,
Mm-hmm.
"No, I'm asking you, how are you doing?" I said, "Because I don't." He goes, "I don't believe you." And I was like, said, "I don't know what to tell you." He said, "Well," he said, "Yeah, you're in a band." He said, "I know we're in infantry and all that," but he said, "Ramadi and that area was pretty rough." He said, "So, he said, I'm sure you saw some things." I said, "Yeah." But I said, "I'm fine." And he goes, "I need you to be honest with me and tell me if you need help." I said, "Help is a death sentence, man." I said, I come to you and telling you I need help. I mean, what?" And he goes, "Well, it is, but we do our best for it not to be that way." I said, "Okay, well, if I need you, I'll come and talk to you." He goes, "Okay." So, hell, I probably wasn't there even 3 months, and the world just fell apart with me. I won't get into great detail with it, but my Marine Corps career basically ended at that point, and I had to, I was directed to go to mandatory psychologist, a psychiatrist, and all that stuff. And there's something to be said about show up to your house and the damn county sheriff's got 6 cars sitting out in front of your house waiting to pick you up for something, and your life completely just disintegrates at that point. And I was going to say something, but I don't remember what I was going to say now. But everything changed in the snap of a finger, literally in a 24-hour period. I mean, and my wife wanted to remain optimistic about it, and I was like, I'm done. She goes, "No, you're not." I was like, "No, I am done." She goes, "Well, you're quitting." I was like, "I'm not wanting to quit, but what I'm telling you is my career is over. There's no." She goes, "Well, you need to be optimistic." And her dad is retired Air Force. He did 27, 28 years in the Air Force as a interrogator, and then went over. Then he retired on a Friday. He came back on a Monday as a GS-13, working for the Pentagon. But he was interrogator, ran security for the Joint Recovery Task Force or agency. I forget what it's called now. But if you like down pilots and stuff, they go in, but they ran the SEER school and all that kind of stuff. He's like Richard Marcinko. He's like 6'4", big mustache and handlebar mustache and real deep voice.
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, you're fine. It's going to be fine." And I mean, instantly, everybody that I was ever friends with or even knew in Albany, everybody in there, I mean, it's amazing how, and everybody just turned their back on me in a heartbeat.
Uh-huh.
And,
And
you know,
probably trying to distance themselves is probably what it was. Yeah.
yep, which I get and I understand. But, you know, then at that point, I'm like, okay, well, I need help. And they're like, well, she should ask for help earlier. You know, but it was going to the psychiatrist. And then he's like, yeah, he wanted me to go to a psychologist. And the psychiatrist, I was in there for 15 minutes talking with him. And he's like, he goes, how long have you been dealing with this? And I said, oh, a year and a half, couple of years now. You know, talking about basically what we've already talked about in this, you know, this episode. And he goes, you know, you have PTSD, right? I was like, I don't. You know, I'm like, I'm just a screw up. I'm a failure. And he goes, I'm telling you right now, you have the classic signs, everything you have, you know, because he even talked to my wife, Kelly, about it. You know, how's he act? How's he this way? Is, you know, and she was like, he's emotionally disconnected. He doesn't care. You know, I'm not saying I didn't care about my family, but I didn't, you know, was constantly losing my temper. You know, I've never been a violent person or hit or punch holes in walls or, you know, crap like that. But I would just get extremely agitated real quick.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to go through counseling for this. You got to go through counseling. So I went to the psychologist, and I had 2 sessions a week with her for like 6 months.
Wow.
And she started doing they call it EMDR, but it's like an rapid eye movement. But it's like, oh, like it's like a light bar, but it's like you're sitting there looking at the front of, you know, Kid and Knight Rider going, you know, light flashing back and forth. And, you know, you got to sit there and just follow it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and sit there and watch it for a minute or so. And it's like, okay, when can I quit doing this? And I'd stop, and she's like, look at the light and follow the light till I ask you a question. So I just kept doing it, you know. And finally, she started asking me questions. And I don't know what session or at what point it was, but we got to the Connex box or the QuadCon and got hit by the. And I think I had said in the earlier podcast that QuadCon was full of CS. So, you know, it was, I couldn't see, you know, eyes are water running out of my face, everything else. And when she asked me that question, she said, it talked me through everything that happened at that moment. Started, you know, because I had met Peyton because he was coming back from medical, and all of a sudden we heard the rocket go off and it hit. And he ran to the truck company barracks, and I just stood there because I'm like, what? And, you know, I ran to it. But experiencing that, the minute in the story that I came in contact with that CS gas and the pepper spray, all of a sudden, sitting in her office, water just started running out of my eyes, and I had snot dripping out of my nose. And I actually had a physical reaction at that point because I was literally sitting there like, I'm like doing this. And I'm like, and she's like, why are you doing that? I'm like, I can't see, you know, and literally just, I mean, it was running out of my face, just dripping down like you just came out of the gas chamber or something. And
yeah, wow.
You know, and then I started bawling like a little baby, you know, but it was then that I finally realized what was going on with me. And I even tried to get out of going to the damn sessions, but I was told I had to go. And my wife's like, well, you're going even if you didn't, they told you didn't have to go. The Marine Corps told you you're still going. I was like, all right, I'll go. But it was at that point I finally realized the severity of all of them. And it took quite some time seeing her even like once a week or once every couple of weeks, or to the point of, once a month, or if something was going on, I would call, say, hey, can I get in and see you sometime this week or something like that. But while I was doing all that, then, I was discharged from the Marine Corps at that point. And that was the other side of it too, that, something, all I knew in my adult life was the United States Marine Corps and being a Marine. That's all I knew. As an occupation. Yeah. And I literally I was like, I'm done. I don't know what to do. So they had me on Prozac and shit. And I used to sit at the kitchen table staring out the window in the morning when the kids left to go to school with a cup of coffee. And they would get home from school, walk in the house, and I'd still be sitting there with a cold cup of coffee.
Wow. That's wild.
I got to the point with that where it's like, I can't take that crap anymore. Then they put me on something else. I wanted to say Cialis, but that's for a different condition. But which, when they took me off the Prozac and they put me on the next thing, caused that condition. I remember going back to the psychiatrist. He's like, yeah, he did one more follow-up after he was in the Marine Corps, out of the Marine Corps. He's like, yeah, you just continue to go to the psychologist. And I was like, because he's the only one that can write the prescription. She couldn't write prescriptions. And I was like, yeah, you need to take me off that. And he goes, why? If it's working, you need to take it. I said, it's working for what it's intended to work. I don't like how I feel on it, but I said, other parts of me are not working. And he's like, I'm not understanding what you mean. And I just flat out said, my D isn't getting hard anymore, doc. And he's like, oh, I got you. Oh, okay. I got you.
We got a pill for that.
Yeah. Because I got what he said, okay. Say no more. I got you.
Oh, yeah. Those are the fun things right there that you have to cherish, those moments of the embarrassing talks with Doc of that nature.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. But like I said, without going into extreme details and stuff like that, what happened with me. But if I could, Andrew, if I could do anything over again, is I would have accepted consequences of saying something. If it cost me my career, if it cost me promotions, if it cost me, and it didn't just happen to me. Everything I did affected my family.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was the mental aspect of my wife and the burden she had to take on, because she basically had to become a father. She had to be mom and dad. If it hadn't been for her, you know, I don't know, we as a family would have survived. And I remember her, honestly, after everything happened and we really sat down and talked after counseling sessions, she was so angry with me, and she had a right to be angry that, why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you this? Why didn't you that?
Yeah.
And I said, what did you want me to tell you about what we saw in Iraq or what we did or what? I said, it's not something, people don't come back and talk about to their spouse, it's not something. I said, my biggest worry over there was you guys. Well, we were fine. I said, yeah, I know. I understand that. I said, and it's still a trait of mine. I don't worry about myself. I don't think that highly of myself to think that I'm deserving of some things in my life or things that I've had. And I don't think, then that's why, it's like being a cop. If you talk to a cop or a firefighter or anybody like EMS or, the stigma is if you reach out for help, it's going to have a negative impact on your career.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible way to look at it. But I think that's the precedent that had been set for so long. And hell, you know as well as I do, we got back from Iraq the first time, even the second time in 2004. We started hearing, somebody said they had PTSD. We're like, oh, bullshit. No, they don't. They're weak. They don't want, bullshit. None of us wanted to believe in that crap. It's like, no, they do not. That's garbage. Well, I'm here to tell you it's true. And it's because of that
it's
mentality.
taken years and years to figure that out, like as a military. We knew it happened in previous combat and stuff.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, especially the Marine Corps, they're so I don't want to say strict on it, but if they see weakness in somebody, they're going to push away, or at least it used to be, and now it has changed quite a bit.
Yeah. I just don't understand why we can't. Well, we talked about it before that, all of our return briefings and crap like that we were supposed to get, we never got. And I don't know if that's just because things weren't in place yet. But, we were supposed to do as soon as we got back, it was either within days or 30 days of coming back, we were supposed to all have, as a unit, a briefing.
We're also supposed to get you're supposed to get 30 days and that time. Yes. I don't think we did that because we came back playing.
No. Well, yeah, we didn't get that. And then there were supposed to be continued one-on-one checks with everybody. And that was one thing in my SIPS board, even the attorney brought up that he said, none of this stuff is in his medical record or his service record. That any of this, did you ever get any of these? I'm like, hell no, we didn't get them. And they're like, well, that was all mandatory stuff. And, that should have been, you got that, but it just wasn't documented because it wasn't required to be documented. And it's like, I did not. You guys were quick to give me smallpox and anthrax, but you didn't want to give me any of that crap before, But
that's it. Yeah,
I hope things are better now.
For sure.
Yeah, but I hope things are better now.
Yeah, they're definitely better than they were. And in the medical field specifically, when I went to the doc, it took years and years and years. So I'm talking I'd say maybe 3 years ago, right? I go into the doc and I'm like, hey, look, my wife wants me to come in and talk, da 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 da. And so I sat down with the doc and he was like, okay, so give me a couple minutes. And he walked out, comes back. He's like, okay, I got you a therapy appointment. And we're going to start on some medication and we're going to get you lined out. And I'm like, am I that messed up? And he's like, well, I wouldn't say you're messed up, but you have some stuff you work through. And I was like, wow, okay, yeah, sure. So, and I will say it's the only time in my entire career that I've literally had somebody from medical give me a call and ask me how I was doing. It was within days of that first appointment, somebody actually called me on the phone and did that every month. Every month, somebody would call me and be like, how are you doing? And I never in my entire career up to that point. So that's why I say I think things have gotten better. Perfect, probably not, but better, yes.
Well, as long as there's movement forward, that's all that matters, I guess. But
True. So and you got separated, and you're still there, stayed close by at least in Georgia area, right?
Yeah, we're still in the same house we bought that we moved to. moved into. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, at that point, the kids were a little established here, and they didn't want to move, and we really couldn't move. The housing market had fallen apart. We really couldn't afford to move anywhere. Really had option to go anywhere. And
Yeah.
it sucks when you go. My wife worked, but she started picking up extra shifts and doing this. Again, I go back to her because she made it her mission to not let what happened with me affect them. So they still got to do their activities, and they did, intramural football or gymnastics and band and things like that. And my son got, started playing hockey down here that he had started in Minnesota, in Columbus, Georgia, which is an hour and 45 minutes north of us. So once or twice a week, we were driving up there for him to play hockey. And really and truly, we couldn't afford to do it because at the time I didn't have a job and she was busting her tail, as a nurse.
Yeah.
And, that's a humbling experience that when you're on track, we had a plan in place with investments and things like that. At that point, I was at 16 years and some months when all this happened with me. And, we had a plan at 20 years if I chose to retire, which I was leaning towards 20 years. But if I needed to go to 21 or 22 or whatever, that, we were going to be in a good spot for me to retire for us. But all that came crashing down. We had to cash out a lot of our investments and life insurance policies and crap like that. And still had our house foreclosed on twice and 2 cars repoed. And I say that all because of my actions, all because of me, all because I didn't ask for help.
Well, as you look, right, what advice would you give to everybody? Like, I know you already mentioned, like, go seek the help, go out and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there are many individuals that have been in your situation, right? And, saw themselves away from the Marine Corps. And I'm sure that was an incredibly difficult time. Once you left the Marine Corps, you're kind of, you're on your own, and nobody ran around the deal. What advice would you give people?
There are resources out there, and there are people in place for that. Don't be ashamed to go to your command. Don't be ashamed to go to your staff NCOs and talk to them. Tell them you need help, whether it be alcohol or tobacco or, the mental health aspect of things. You need to swallow your pride in that case and consider it's not just you that you're affecting, it's the people around you. You're not doing, what are the leadership traits, mission accomplishment and troop welfare.
Well, yeah.
Mission, whatever, I'm saying it wrong. Those aren't the leadership traits, but
traits. Yeah. But that's the mission of the Marine Corps, right? Something like that, leadership.
But but in the process of taking care of accomplishing the mission, you have to take care of the Marines. And that includes you too. You have got to take care of yourself because you're of no use to anybody, including yourself, if you don't.
Very true.
Sometimes you've got to swallow your pride and say, hey, something ain't right. I'm not, I need to go talk to somebody. And I think, I'll never say you, but I think a lot of us were guilty of that, even coming back from Iraq, that we probably even failed those junior to us by not actively I mean, we all talk to each other and, hey, how you doing? Things like that. But, I was never trained in that.
Yeah, that's a big part of it is there wasn't training put in place for us to be able to deal with that.
Yes.
And nowadays there is training in place, and they talk about how to deal with that, who the resources are, and those types of things. Whereas, back then,
yeah. And I thought about that, and I even talked to my wife about it. And I was like, in the process, I said, I'm sure I failed and turned my back on people and didn't even realize it. It was never my intent, and I'm sure I did. And that's one of the worst feelings in the world, when everything or people that you trust literally turn their back on you.
Yeah.
When you make a phone call to them and they won't even take your call.
Yeah, I don't think that that you were like that. In my humble opinion, I've known you for a couple of years, but you never treated me that way.
Well, I'm sure there's Marines out there that have a disdain for me, the dislike for me. I'm sure. But I mean, I don't blame them, because I'm not. Sometimes I don't like myself.
Nah, you're a great guy.
I mean, that's actually an important thing. Saying that when everything happened, anything I had in this house, anything, my wife would get like little Marine Corps collectibles and shit. I took everything down. It wasn't up till about 4 years ago I actually put stuff back out.
Okay.
Yeah. I never displayed my NCO sword. I wanted as far away from it at all as possible. I didn't get to leave the Marine Corps the way I wanted to leave it. And I went from stages of embarrassment, and then to sheer anger over months, to, I've got to move on. I've got to put all this behind me. And it's hard, because I would literally look at myself in the mirror and be like, you suck, dude. I freaking hate you. You're a terrible person. You destroyed your family's lives.
If anybody can talk negative about somebody, anybody in the military, when they're looking at themselves, can do that.
Yeah,
it comes very easy, and I think it's important to remind yourself, remind everybody that, hey, it's not as bad as you think. There are people out there that care. And,
Well, I was, that's the stage you saying that there's people out there that care, but you get to a point where you just can't see anything. You can't see it because you don't want to believe it, because you have yourself so convinced that you were worthless and useless. I mean, I went through a period of time, and I'm embarrassed to say it, and I really never really talked to Kelly about it a lot until recently. And I say recently, the last couple of years, but I was at the point where I didn't want to live anymore. I was done.
Yeah.
And I used to, go to that.
Well,
go ahead.
What was it then that kind of pushed you on the other side of that? Like, how did you get through that?
I think it was time. I think finally one day, I don't remember what, I really couldn't say specifically what it was, but I think I think I had said to Kelly, because I don't remember what happened. We weren't really necessarily fighting, but we were kind of arguing about something, because she was getting on my case, saying, you need to, you're not the man I knew. I didn't get Mike back. I got you back,
Yeah.
And she didn't mean it in a negative way. She was just being honest. And she said, I've learned to understand that that's what I've got now. And that's, it is, it basically is what it is. But she had said to me, she said, that's all she wanted.
Yeah. She wanted to
Yeah.
make it.
But she had said to me, I said, well, Kelly, I have nothing to offer you. All this, everything I've done. And she goes, I said, I have nothing to offer you. And she goes, I don't need you in my life. I don't need you. She said, you're in my life because I choose for you to be in my life. That's why you are in my life.
That's
a and I think that day, and it was that conversation when she said it. And I just stood there and looked at her. I was like, geez, thanks. You don't need me. And she goes, I make money. And she flat out told me, she said, I've been a mother, I've been a father, this and that. I've done all this crap. I don't need you. And then, then it's the comment of what I needed from you, I already got. Your son and your daughter. I don't need you for anything else, kind of deal. And the stress of, to go back a little bit, like the stress of everything that happened with me. And I say, it's not just you, it impacts everybody that you care about and love. Is she started having medical issues and medical conditions and had to have, procedures done because of the stress and the strain and the emotional toll it took on her. And like she said, if I needed you, do you think I would still be here after all of this? She said, the only reason I'm with you here right now is because I want you here. She says, you've got to either understand that or you need to leave.
Wow.
And I think it was at that point that I was like, okay, I need to quit being a big baby, and I need to, and it wasn't a sense of being a baby. It was, I need to quit feeling sorry for myself, which I still do. And not in the sense that I feel like, oh, woe's me. But, I still don't think highly of myself or low, but I had to come out of that funk. And, whether it be working or, I had to find a purpose other than what I was at that point.
Yeah.
So,
but what, for me to you, I will tell you, my father was a Marine way back in the day, and you might have been there when he came out to visit at Pendleton.
Mm-hmm.
But so he was a Marine back in the day, and not a great Marine, we'll say that. Came in a private, left a private type of thing. So he only did 3 years, but it wasn't successful. And he went on, to do all kinds of great things. He's a great man, a great father, all that type of stuff. And no matter what, I think, this is just an outsider looking in, me to you, but I think you've kind of done the same thing. I've known you throughout this whole period, and I see a different person today than I did, when all this first started happening. It's a completely different change. And I think you're doing fantastic.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Still some things I need to work on, but hey, that's life in general.
We all need to work on things. But, it's okay. What are you going to do?
but I mean, it's been, guys like you, Andrew, that, I really removed myself from everything and everybody. Because I was like, if you want to distance yourself from me, then I don't want a part of anything with anybody. I don't want to talk to people. I don't. And I think, and it was really, I don't know how long have we been, talking like through Facebook or, texting. I think we've texted on and off over the years.
Yeah.
But, and it wasn't all the time, or it wasn't phone conversations all the time, or maybe it was once a month, or, hey, happy Father's Day, or something like that. But it was the fact that you never just cut ties with me always gave me some kind of encouragement. I'm like, okay, well, at least, I still got a friend somewhere, and I think that was one big thing, was the camaraderie I lost, the sense of being part of something bigger than me was gone. And it was, it was just the friendships. And a lot of that may have been my fault at that point, because I just kind of cut ties and said, well, let me just go over here in the corner and die. But
Well,
I've always appreciated what you've done, and anytime you've talked, or uplifting words, or things like that, or you just sent a picture, it's always been nice, and it's always made me feel good to know that you've always been there and you didn't forget about me.
I can't forget about you. You kidding me? You're a huge influence for me, over the years. So I appreciate it. And I've got to be honest, and I wish everybody would take this to heart, but don't give up on people, right? Don't always reach out, always say something. Be the one to reach out, because you never know what situation somebody's going to be in. Like you said, you didn't really want to talk to anybody, and it's really kind of how I make friends. I just kind of force myself on them, and I'm like, yeah, you're going to be my friend, type of deal. So, I kind of did the same thing with you. Just kept going.
You were relentless. You wouldn't give up. I'm like, dude, just leave me alone, man. Jesus. It was a couple of you, were the same way, and I was like, just leave me the hell alone. But I always appreciated it, whether I gave off that vibe that I appreciated it or not. But it took me a little bit to finally be like, okay, well, maybe I do deserve this. Maybe I do deserve to have people care about me or give a crap.
Absolutely. Of course.
Yeah.
I've always cared about you. I've always there, and if I failed in that in some way, please slap me next time you see me. But
never. I probably want to be another 15 years before I probably see you again. So,
no way. Are you kidding me? Here very soon, this podcast is going to take off, and I'm going to have to start flying you guys around the country to do podcasts with me or something. I don't know. I might figure it out.
We need to do
that's what I'm ready.
We need to do a Lost Art cruise and do the podcast from the cruise ship or something like that.
That'd be
all of us.
Fun.
Yeah.
That would be a load of fun. Yeah. We can all.
Your girls would have a blast on that.
Yeah. It'd be cool. We should do it.
You and the wife would probably be a nervous wreck by the end of the cruise, but.
Oh yeah, because we think Taylor would jump off the back of the ship. But that's okay. She always keeps me on my toes. We'll put it that way. Well, hey, is there anything else you want to share? Words of wisdom before we get off here? Anything like that?
Just to reiterate, like you always, every time you're in the podcast, you always talk about, the suicide hotline or the VA hotline. I mean, if those resources are there and you have the ability to use them, use them. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Swallow your pride a little bit. And if you can get the help, I promise you will be much better yourself as a human being, and the people around you will be much better because of it. Don't ignore it. Don't, if you were suicidal, you do matter. You mean something. Even if you think you don't, you do. And I was asked that question by the psychologist. She said, have you ever contemplated suicide? I said, damn right I have. She goes, well, how many times you think? And I was like, I couldn't even count. I have no idea. She goes, well, why, and she flat out looked at me. She goes, why haven't you done it? And I'm like, I was like, really? She goes, I'm honestly asking, why haven't you done it? I'm asking, you said more times than you can count. Why haven't you done it? And I said, well, that's kind of a effed up question. That's exactly how I said it to her. And she looked at me and she goes, Well, it's an effed up thought that you keep having. And she goes, "What? Why?
Very true.
Why haven't you done it?" And I said, "I guess it's not jealous, but I said, I guess the thought that I would never see my wife or my kids again is something that I can't deal with." I said, they're my motivation on a daily basis, and the thought that what I would put them through, or the thought of me never being able to see them again. I guess the word is selfish. I said, I'm a selfish person. I can't bear the thought of not being able to see them or give them a hug or tell them I love them or things like that. And she goes, "That's a good answer. That's a good thought." Stop and think about that. If you are at that point, that those people need you, even if you think they don't, they do. The world needs you. Society needs you. Your friends need you. Not just your wife and kids, or, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, grandparents. You don't realize, and I've talked to several people over the last, since all this has happened, about that exact thing, and that have lost people that have committed suicide. And they're like, yeah, they said they left a letter and said they just couldn't take it anymore. So they were ending their misery. All they did was create a lifelong world of misery for us.
Yeah, that's very true.
And several of them were like, how selfish can you be? And I was like, well, I guess I'm selfish in a different way. I'm selfish in the fact that I couldn't bear doing it. So I don't mean to go a morbid route with things like that, Andrew, but I think that's things that
you're fine.
You want to address on the podcast. And if you think anybody can benefit from it, then
absolutely. I do think people can benefit from it, because there's, the suicide rate amongst veterans is very high. So there are people out there thinking the same thoughts. There are people out there that are in the same boat and trying to get through life on the day to day, and they're struggling with it. And just knowing that there's somebody like you out there that has been able to overcome it, been able to push forward and seek the help and get the help and be able to overcome everything. That's fantastic. That's something that a positive influence on the people that are going to listen to this podcast.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was going to say that's my opinion about the whole situation.
And that's, people need to understand too, that are going through that. And it's, I remember asking one day, I'm like, so when am I going to be cured? When am I going to be back to normal? And she looked at me, she goes, "You're never going to get cured. You're never going to be back to normal." She said, "This is your new normal. This is who you are." She said, "You can either accept that and move on with your life," or she said, "or you can let it kill you." And she flat out said, "It's easy to kill yourself. It's hard to live." And I was like, yeah, you're right. But, it's not something that ever goes away. It's still a part of me. I have great days, and then I have some days that Kelly will flat out look at me. She goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, not really. What's going on?" But I had enough, counseling. You need to verbalize. You need to talk. You need to express how you feel. And there are some days when I start getting loud and I start almost like I'm yelling. And Kelly used to look at me and she'd go, "Why are you yelling at me?" I'm like, "I'm not. I'm just trying to get it out. I'm trying to get it out as fast as I can." And now she just got to the point she just stands there and looks at me. And if I start getting, I've got to, this is how I am feeling inside right now. And this is how it's coming out.
Yeah.
Once it's out, I'm like, "Oh, okay, I feel better now." But it never. What's that?
I had to turn a light on. My RV is getting dark.
Oh, but my advice is understand that it's never going to go away. You will get better. You will learn how to deal with it, but it's not something that's just going to be, there's no magic drug. There's no pill. That's just going to change it.
Yeah, that's very cool.
You have to learn, to use the resources that are there, whether that be going to counseling or call centers or even just your family or friends, just to talk to them.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew, I'll text you, hey, can I talk to you?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes some things I don't want to talk to my wife about because it's just, their memories or bad thoughts and stuff like that. It's like, hey, you got a couple minutes just to listen to me?
Yeah.
Everybody needs an ear sometimes. And sometimes you don't have to say anything. It's just hearing it. Like, we had talked about earlier. So I think that's about all I can really add to it. I wish I'd actually thought about trying to go back to school to do counseling.
That'd be awesome.
To do that. And I talked to Kelly about it, but I've never pulled the trigger on it because that's one thing with me that I lost was my motivation on some things. I've got 1,000 good ideas, but I don't have a motivation to do any of them. Where I used to be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, we're going to get this. Now it's like, man, I don't even want to get out of bed today. But I also attribute a lot of that to being 50 years old too. But
I didn't want to say that part of it. I was trying.
And then a couple of these at night, and I'm like, man, I really don't want to get out of bed.
I understand that. Yeah, I do. But yeah, hey, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing. I know it was probably not the easiest things to share, but I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of individuals out there. And like you said, reach out, call somebody if you need help. I had an individual that I've had on as a guest before. He called me up today out of the blue and was like, hey, look, and he just wanted to talk through some things. And, I just chatted, and, I didn't say much, you were saying. But pain shared is pain divided. Laughter shared is laughter multiplied. Yeah. So, if you can share a laugh, share it because it doubles. And then, of course, be there to listen. You don't have to solve anything. I don't think we solved any problems when I was talking to the gentleman today, but I at least was there to listen. And I think that's important.
Don't forget the VA has some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net and click on the chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life lost is one too many. I care about you. I know the whole veteran community cares about you, so please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, reach out to the buddies that you serve with, ask them how they're doing. If they need a helping hand, please give it to them. All right. Thank you one last time. I truly appreciate it. To all the listeners, stay motivated. Change your socks.